Welcome back to the Budget and Appropriations Committee. My name is Danielle McCray. I'm the chair of the committee as well as the councilwoman for the 2nd District. Today we are joined by Council President Zeke Cohen,
Thank you, Madam Chair.
as well as members of the committee, Vice President Sharon Green Middleton, Councilman Yitzi Schleifer, Councilman Paris Gray, Councilwoman Felicia Porter, Councilman John Bullock, Councilman Jermaine Jones, as well as Councilwoman Odette Ramos. We're also joined by, thank you, we're also joined by a lot of representatives from the mayor's office, the council president's office, as well as council services. And our committee staff for today is Tony Leva. We are here with the, I'm gonna wait for y'all. Y'all good? Okay. We're here with the Baltimore Police Department, and we're going to go straight into their presentation at this time.
Good evening, Chairwoman McCray, Vice Chair Middleton, members of the council and council president. Thank you for the opportunity to join you this evening to discuss our fiscal year 2027 budget allocation. With me tonight are members of my executive team who I won't introduce each one, but they can introduce themselves when they speak. Over the last year, the Baltimore Police Department has made significant strides in reducing crime and making our city safer. I'm incredibly proud of the members of the BPD, and you should be as well. In my 28 years with the department, I can say with confidence that our sworn and professional members continue to serve with distinction, dedication, and an unwavering commitment. Their mission is clear: to reduce crime, build trust and meaningful relationships within our communities, and ensure every resident feels safe and protected. Our members are hardworking, resilient, and inspiring. It's an honor to lead the agency and serve the city. During the course of tonight's hearing, we look forward to talking with you about the department's many accomplishments, to include historic crime reductions. We're seeing some of the most significant declines in violence in the history of the city. Building upon our successes of 24 and 25, homicides are down another 24% in 2026. As of today, we sit at 40 homicides for the year compared to 53 last year at this time. Just to put that in context, in May of 2015, we had 42 homicides, just in the month of May. We're sitting at 40 for the year. Non-fatal shootings took a little bit of a hit in May, but we are still down 2%, 121 to 123. And some of the significant reasons for why these reductions are taking place, which within other areas, robbery is down 14%, carjackings are down 45%, commercial robberies down 25%, and burglaries are down 15%. Only a few categories remain up: aggravated assaults and our thefts. Enhanced investigative qualities have led us to these reductions, and we've vastly improved our quality investigations, leading to clearance rates well above the national average. Our homicide rate, clearance rate, which hovered in the 30s and 40s for many years, is now 67%. The national average is 58%. Non-fatal shooting clearances are at 60%. There is no national average because we're one of the few agencies that breaks out shootings from aggravated assaults. Robberies down are at 55% clearance rate compared to the national average of 28%. And one of the significant things, because this is the one that affects probably a lot more people than most, is the burglaries. The clearance rate is 37%, which is above the 15% national average. Our hiring and attrition is headed in the right direction. We have 2,088 sworn members. We're still about 408 short. And we've got 600 professional members. We're about 200 professional members short. While some have expressed doubts about phantom positions or claim we'll never overcome our hiring challenges, which I was probably one of them a few years ago, I have to disagree now. Even previous leadership didn't believe we could reach net positive staffing, yet here we are, Last year, we were a net positive, and we're only about 400 officers short, and we've got a couple hundred in the academy and in field training and in our entertainment districts. Our members continue to show up even when shifts are short. They're present, committed, and dedicated to serving and protecting Baltimore. As far as the consent decree goes, which we have been in since April of 2017, in the last couple years, we have made steady headway to becoming self-assessing and self-correcting agency. 5 sections of the paragraphs have fallen off. Community oversight and task force, prisoner transport, the big one, which was First Amendment protective activity, coordination with Baltimore City School Police, officer assistance, and support. 2 other sections are in sustainment, which means they have to remain basically sustained for a year, technology and recruitment, hiring, and retention for 2 years. My goal when I took over the job was to try to be satisfied with the consent decree by the time my tenure ends. So I'm looking forward to, by the end of 2028, the consent decree being satisfied. And what that means, I've changed the way I said this over the years. I said I wanted to be out of the consent decree, which isn't really the right term. Right term is that we want to satisfy the requirements of the consent decree and continue to build on those. Even those 5 areas that have fallen off and the Department of Justice no longer oversees us, we monitor those things ourselves so we don't fall back, and we make corrective action when it's needed. And I hope that we never go back to not monitoring ourselves, because we've done a pretty good job of it. Quality of life initiatives, we're confronting those head on with new initiatives and partnerships. We started an entertainment district, has been doing extremely well. Just some of their stats since January 1, they've answered over 2,800 calls for service, done over 197 bike patrols, almost 6,000 car stops, almost 22,000 business checks, 21,000 increments of foot patrol. They've issued over 1,200 citations. That's moving violations for traffic violations, made 204 arrests and 17 handgun violations. While we made great progress over the last year on many fronts, I know firsthand there's much work to do. A few words about the budget. Even though we're going to exceed our budget for this year, we're going to work 100,000 hours less than we did last year of overtime. The increased FOP contractual obligations are what's causing the budget to be, which has caused the budget to go over our budget. But we've made workday improvements and enhancement oversights related to overtime monitoring and red flag identification. We've greatly decreased our penalty pay, which was a big hit on our budget. The operational realities of policing in Baltimore, including special events, EPU deployments, and other public safety responsibilities, are what drive overtime and staffing needs. For example, the George Spider event, change in permits added to the time. The event went from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. and added alcohol, which means we were given a couple days notice before that, caused us to increase our officer allotment. Last minute changes affect our budget, our overtime, and ensuring safety, but it's not our job to question those. We just have to go out and make sure that all of the events happen securely. There's no built-in overtime. Our only overtime we have are vacancies. The vacancies are built in. We have to pay those at a regular rate, but when we pay overtime, we have to pay that at a rate of time and a half. I remain encouraged by ongoing downward trends in crime and inspired by the daily efforts of our members and to ensure every resident and our visitors feel safe, protected, and supported. With our partner agencies, we're committed to moving our city forward and building on our gains and working each day to be the agency our residents deserve. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak with you. My executive team and I are ready to answer your questions and engage in meaningful dialogue about public safety in our city. Thank you.
Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you for having us. My name is Charlotte Graham. I'm the Chief of Finance and Personnel Services Division for the Baltimore Police Department, and I'm going to quickly go over our 9 service areas within the budget that we're recommending tonight. So our first service area is going to be Administration Bureau. And as I mentioned, we have 9 services. So in the proposal tonight, the Baltimore Police Department's budget is $656 million, of which $606 is general fund and $51 million is grants and other funding. I want to point out that the budget is continuing the same level of services. There's no increases. The main reason for the financial increase is because of the FOP contract. That was $22.8 million, and general inflation for our services and contracts. So the budget does propose the same level of services. So our first service is the Administrative Bureau. We are recommending a budget of $75 million, of which $62 million is general funded. There's 195 authorized positions. And just to give you an idea of some of the cost centers within that service, one of the largest one is asset management. Asset management manages the facilities, buildings, vehicles, uniforms for the agency. So $22 million is asset management's budget. Majority of that is going to be to pay for our facility buildings, the rentals to DGS, and the outside rentals for those facilities. In addition, our second largest cost center in that area is our Administrative Duties Division. And what that is the area where our injured officers go while they're recovering, either because they're not at full duty or because they're out on medical. That budget is $9 million. Right now, we have 165 sworn members that are not at full duty. Majority of those are because of medical injuries, but not all of them. So that does impact our deployable staffing. And then we have executive protection. The proposed budget for executive protection is $5.8 million, and that will fund 25 authorized positions. So our second service out of 9 is police patrol. This is actually our largest service. We're recommending a budget of $238 million, of which $228 million is general funded. It funds 1,366 positions. And this funds your 9 districts. And those budgets for the 9 districts range from $21 to $23 million based on the tenure of the personnel that are assigned there. You will see in here on the highlights, 92 positions were moved from patrol, but I want to point out these were not reductions to frontline patrol. The good news, as the police commissioner mentioned, we're filling our positions. We had a net increase of 81 positions to our sworn personnel last year. So as a result of that, we're needing more positions to put our recruits through the academy. So it's just a reallocation of the positions to fund the recruits, but as you know, those recruits will go to patrol, and then a reorganization because we moved the BCICs from police patrol in this recommended budget, and we're moving them over to operational intelligence. In regards to performance measures, we've been exceeding our performance measures. The number of minutes on average from dispatch to arrival on scene for priority on calls, our target was 10 minutes. We've been reaching a target of 8 minutes, which is great. So as a result, we're actually decreasing the target for fiscal year 27 to 9 minutes. And percentage of time police officers spend on proactive policing, our actual was 48%, which well exceeded our target of 33%. So for next year, we're also increasing that to 40%. So our third service is Criminal Investigation Division. This is actually our second largest service, with a budget of $130 million, funding 651 authorized positions. Within this service this year, you will see that there's been a reorganization that's impacted some of the cost centers. Within here, on our org chart, we have CID and some criminal intelligence areas, so you will see some dollars have shifted around. Nothing's changed, it's just moving of funds and naming of the cost centers. So to give you an idea of some of the areas in here, we have our district detective section. That has a budget of $36 million, or 196 authorized positions. And we also have operational intelligence at $22 million, funding 126 authorized positions, and our homicide section with $16 million, funding 98 authorized positions. And you can see in this service as well, we've been exceeding our performance measures. So percentage of homicide cases cleared annually, our target was 42%, and we've well exceeded that with 67%. So as a result, for next year, we've increased that target, and very similar pattern for percentage of non-fatal shootings. So data-driven strategies is one of our smallest service areas. This is our fourth one. It has a budget of $10 million, 48 authorized positions, and it only has 2 cost centers. It has the Watch Center with a budget of $6.2 million and 22 authorized positions, and analytical intelligence with a budget of $3 million and 26 authorized positions. Our fifth service area is our Public Integrity Bureau. This is the bureau that investigates claims of police misconduct, both internally and externally. We're recommending a budget of $20 million for 100 authorized positions, and this funds cost centers such as internal investigations with a budget of $12 million and 65 authorized positions. One of the performance measures, number of misconduct complaints per 100,000. Our target was 55. We exceeded that with 66. Recruitment section. So this is our sixth service. We're recommending a budget of $36 million with 254 authorized positions. And as we mentioned when we were discussing police patrol, we'd move some of those positions over to this service so that we can hire more people and get them through the academy. So this funds 2 areas. It funds our new recruits, and these are the actual police officer trainees that are in the academy, and it funds our sworn recruitment section. Our sworn recruitment section is responsible for recruiting, doing the applications and background investigations, and a lot of the proactive outreach to bring people to be police officers in the Baltimore Police Department. Our seventh service is our crime lab and evidence control. We are recommending a budget of $29 million, of which $24.7 million is general funded. It's funding 177 authorized positions. There's 4 areas within this service. The largest one is going to be the crime lab, and that has a budget of $12.4 million for general fund, $16 million in total, and funds 87 authorized positions. We also have crime scene, evidence control, and digital forensics in this area. And for the performance measures, we also have been exceeding the performance measures. Number of items dispositioned. Our target was 33,000. We've exceeded that with 38,000. And our 8th service is the Compliance Bureau, recommending a budget of $93 million, funding 376 authorized positions. We have our education and training section in here. This is our largest cost center with $13.4 million, funds 66 total authorized positions. So this would be our academy and our in-service. We also have our IT department in here, funding a budget of $12.5 million and 23 authorized positions. For performance measures, our percentage of police officers who've received CIT training, our target was 20%, our actual is 21%, and that's a big increase from the prior fiscal year 24, where we only had 17%, so that's definitely been moving in the right direction. And our last service, this is our special operations section, recommending a budget of $25 million, 111 authorized positions. To give you an example of some areas within the service, we have our aviation unit with a budget of $7.8 million, funding 21 authorized positions, and our SWAT team, which funds $7.6 million and 41 authorized positions. And last year, we previously had this service, Patrol Support Services, but this year, this service has been collapsed, and the areas that were in here, central and juvenile booking has been transferred to Police Patrol, and secondary employment has been transferred over to CID. So I want to thank you for your time today. And that was the end of the presentation, so thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Cohen. We're going straight into questions. Councilman Cohen. Excuse me, Council President Cohen.
All good. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you to the team that's here with us this evening. I am extremely proud of the progress that we are making on the violent crime fight in Baltimore. I remember being here not too long ago with Councilman Bullock, Council Vice President Milton, Councilman Schleifer and some of our other colleagues when the city felt out of control. We are much, much safer than we were 6, 8, 10 years ago, and a lot of that is to your leadership. So I appreciate the work that you're doing and every single woman and man in this department that is working their tail off to make Baltimore a safer place. That said, we still have a very long way to go. And I want my kids and all of our kids to grow up in the safest city in America. I'm gonna ask about CIT training. We know that we've had challenges when it comes to some of the officer interactions around mental health crises. This is something that we've been working on in really good partnership with the administration to try to develop a better model where we can deploy the right resources to address the issues. But we know that in many of these cases, law enforcement may still be part of that interaction. Commissioner, last budget cycle, I asked if you would commit to having all folks in the department get CIT trained. You said yes, but we needed to work with the DOJ to make it happen. Where are we on that?
I think everybody is on board with getting everyone crisis intervention training, and just to make sure that everyone understands, every officer gets 40 hours of behavioral health training in the academy. This crisis intervention trained officers is additional training. We offered that. We're up around, I think, 28% now in patrol. That doesn't mean that that just means in our patrol forces. There's people that get trained and move out of patrol. What we want to do is put it mandatory in the academy. The problem is the vendor who we use, they don't think that they can facilitate as much as we want to use them for in-service training and our new officers. So if we can get them to commit, but everybody's on board with getting everybody trained as quickly as we can with crisis.
DOJ is good, consent decree.
Everybody's good with it processing through the academy. We just have to get the vendor to be able to provide the services that we need.
Yeah. Good evening, Chief Sullivan over compliance at BPD. Because it's compliance that's directly related to the decree, there is a stipulation in the decree that the training be voluntary, and so we could not introduce it in the academy because that would make it mandatory. And the commissioner did speak correctly that our partners, who are fantastic partners, we have this new issue of we have so many people in our academy, which is great. We didn't have this before. That it makes it a lot harder for them to facilitate the training and do it in a trauma-informed way. You know, when you have suddenly 60 people descending on people with lived experience, that's a lot. And so they have asked us to think about those things as we negotiate how best to deliver the training. But the commissioner is right, we do provide training in the academy, and then every single year, officers receive behavioral health training at in-service, and the monitoring team, when they did their last assessment, actually couldn't find a difference between CIT certified officers, how they handled a behavioral health call, and the non-CIT certified officers. And overwhelmingly, they said all of our officers did a really nice job responding to those in crisis. But it's because they get so much training, and it's consistent and it's repetitive, and that's very helpful to gel those skills.
Okay. Chief Sullivan, I'm going to follow up here and ask, what would it take to get, I want the vast majority of our police officers to be CIT trained. We know that many of the calls that officers are asked to respond to are mental health crises. We are hoping to change that and take some of that burden away from the police department, but it happens, and it happens with relative frequency. And so is this about needing to source other vendors? Is this about, like, what will help us get there faster?
Yeah, so we're in agreement, and the good news is we actually have 29% in patrol that are now CIT certified. We have 4 more classes to be offered this year, so that'll be a total of 6.
We will continue to work with our partners to find creative ways to deliver this training in a way that helps them and, of course, helps us. But those are all still things that we are working out.
Okay. So you're at 29%. Is there a goal, Commissioner? How are we going to get to that 100%, Aaron?
My goal is 100%. And the voluntary portion that we're talking about is going off of a model that's several years old that we may try to make it where I want it to be mandatory in the academy. And I'm going to do everything I can to get it that way. Like I said, the model that we're using that makes it voluntary is an older model that we just need to, policing has progressed. We deal with more behavioral health crisis than any other agency, and I want us to be fully trained 100%.
Okay. When we come back here a year from now, I want to see significant gains on the percent. 29% is good. It's better than where we were, but you want to be at 100? Let's cut the difference in half. Let's get to 50 or 60. Understanding the resource constraints, but I would like to see some benchmarks so that more of our folks can get there. I'm going to shift gears for a second question. Thank you, Chief Sullivan.
Thank you.
And ask about the mass proliferation of smoke shops in our city. This is an issue that this council has really taken seriously, as we've seen over 1,200 smoke shops selling poison, often to our kids, under-regulated products, deceptive practices, often in the form of candy, Skittles, cotton candy, young people describing becoming addicted to vape, becoming addicted to marijuana. These shops are not registered. They're not cannabis dispensaries. They're not supposed to be selling marijuana, and yet and still they often are. Kratom, even traces of fentanyl. It is a real public health and public safety problem for the city of Baltimore. Councilman Glover and I introduced a bill recently to enable law enforcement to padlock repeat bad actors. Would you support that legislation?
Absolutely.
Great. How much resources does the police department currently dedicate to addressing that issue?
There's no set unit that does it. We have our districts and our district action teams do it, and our special investigation section, our criminal investigation division can do it as well. Once we get the complaint, we have to work with all of our partners, federal, state, and local, because lots of times there are violations of their licenses as well. And then we have to make sure that everybody's willing to prosecute the marijuana arrests when we make them.
I appreciate that. There are a ton of agencies in the mix, like you said, local, state, and federal. What I'm hoping to see in this coming year is that it is a real focus of this department in partnership with the sheriff, with the ATCC, with the health department, with the newly set up Office of Consumer Protection, really hoping to see some focused energy from BPD, because I think it is a predatory practice that is preying on our kids and our communities, and this council has had about enough.
Yes, sir, it is, and marijuana still continues to be one of the driving forces for violence in our city. I know even though it's technically not legal, but it is distributed to the point, but there's still the distribution on the street, and it still leads to violence. There's still way too much violence and shootings associated with the distribution, sale, and use of marijuana.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. I want to go to Service 626, and that's data-driven strategies. My question is, if the city is crediting data-driven deployment and intelligence sharing for crime reductions, why is BPD reducing positions? I do see that one is being abolished as part of a long-term vacancy savings. I guess I would need more information about the police sergeant and the operations officer 5.
Mainly what we're doing is we're professionalizing the positions. They don't have to be sworn members to do those jobs. So we can put our sworn members back on the street, and we can hire a professional member, usually at a reduced cost of what an officer or a sergeant is costing, because it's more of an analysis job.
So I would say to the commissioner's point,
So, sir, we know who you are, just for the record. Can we get your name and your position, please? That's good.
It's not your day, sir.
okay. So while overtime funding reduced department-wide, operational demands remain high. Staffing shortages could quickly consume, projected savings. The idea is being the heavy focus that we're having in reference to data-driven strategy. To the commissioner's point, we are looking to professionalize as much as we can. We do our heavy reliance on our data-driven strategies unit through the Watch Center, as well as the intel portion of this and analytics. So what we're looking to do is strategize and optimize those individuals. So we have a strong team in data-driven strategy. So, just like anybody else, we've found ways to do more with less. And I think the product that we're getting, because of the people that we have in the right place, the service duties and responsibilities do not suffer, but we do realize that unfortunately, because of staffing concerns, there is some rotation that we have in those units. What we find with a lot of our analysts is, they are highly trained and well paid. And then at some point they leave us to go to other non-government agencies. So we're quickly always finding ourselves in a position to train them up where they're being a hot commodity. But what we've done is found the way through either professional staffing and just technology to fill those gaps that you do not see any deficit and any reduction in tasks because of these shortages.
For the defunded positions, not the one that was a long-term vacancy, what was the work that was performed by those 2 positions? What were their responsibilities?
So can you hear me? So the position that was defunded, what we did is across the agency, any position that would be vacant for more than 18 months was defunded. So the data entry operator 3 had not been funded. Had not been filled for the last 18 months. So as part of that strategy to
Right, I'm specifically asking about the police sergeant position and the
Okay.
operation. I just want to know what the responsibilities or the work that they perform.
Yeah, I'm sorry, for the police sergeant, that was professionalization, so I'll turn that back over to operations.
Okay.
So it's one of those things where we look at, the span of control that an individual may have. It may be a supervisory position, but if we can try to optimize it by professionalizing it, we will. And then it returns that individual vacancy or that individual spot back into the patrol bucket to use them elsewhere. So where we can see opportunities to professionalize, we will professionalize those positions.
Maybe I missed something in the first portion of your sentence. I get that we're professionalizing a position. What was the work performed or the responsibilities because you said, hey, they're a hot commodity. We're training these folks up and we can get someone else to do this for less. That's why we're professionalizing it. What exactly did they do?
So for a supervisor, I'm assuming that they're going to be in the Watch Center. Is that the position? So the Watch Center position, he oversees, or he or she would oversee individuals who are operating a camera. So then they will have supervisory responsibility for scheduling, for leave, for oversight. at some point, we identified this as a position that could be professionalized, so that a sworn member who had police powers did not need to really be in that position. So we then transitioned that to a professional position.
Most of the employees he was overseeing were professional members. So we just made a professional position for a supervisor, and we'll move that sergeant to a sworn position that's vacant somewhere that we need to cover.
Okay, I got it, I wasn't trying to make it complicated, I just wanted to know what the person, what their responsibilities was, and I thank you all.
Yes, ma'am.
We're going to get to Vice President Middleton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, I'd like to also thank you all for the service that you do for this city and in fighting crime and all the other added pieces that you continue to do in helping the residents in the city of Baltimore. And on that note, I also want to mention, most of my work is with Northern and Northwestern, which you also have a history with. And I have noticed, an increase in partnerships and just helping to work with the other agencies and doing all those other pieces that we need to do in our communities, like the towing of cars and going through that 1, 2, 3 step process. I also want to mention the added things that you kind of do on the side. I want to commend, I ran into Deputy Commissioner Jones I'm on a board at Morgan for gambling addiction and things like that. And you were also speaking on that board. So just wanted to bring up all those little added things mean a lot. That message gets out on how the police department can help. So my first question, what are your top 3 budget priorities this year? I know you have goals for a lot of things, but there's always certain things that are your priority that we must continue to keep the funding for. What are those 3 things?
Well, the most important thing is our patrol staffing. We have to be able to put the cops in the cars, and we have to be able to hire the members to fill the cars, and that is going pretty well. We have several classes in. The recruitment process is going extremely well. I think we have 3 classes in the academy now of 47, 37, and 41 officers. Plus, we have 2 classes that are out in the entertainment district and 1 that's in field training. So building up patrol is my ultimate goal. I didn't do as good a job as I should have done with that over the last couple years because I've been concentrating on getting our violence down, and I haven't put as many people in patrol as I should. So that's going to change because I have the rest of the agency, our crime strategies and intelligence division. We streamlined all of our intelligence into one big umbrella. So that, along with our criminal investigation division, those 3 areas are what's going to drive the crime fight. But we need also everybody in our Resources and Accountability Bureau, the Public Integrity Division, and our compliance, and everybody in order to facilitate and to accomplish everything we need to do with our consent decree so we can be out of the Department of Justice oversight. It's a good time because Judge Berdar, who's been fabulous, wants us to get into compliance because he sees that we're not the same agency we were when we started this in 2017. We're actually not even the same agency we started in that we were in 2020, because for the first couple years of the consent decree, we really didn't do a whole lot of anything. We didn't really progress through, and now we're seeing the fruits of our labor come through. So patrol, criminal investigations, and the crime strategies and intelligence divisions would be the three parts, because that's what's going to affect the citizens of Baltimore the most, is if they're a victim of a crime, to get it solved.
Thank you, that's important information. And the second question, what costs are associated with legal settlements and risk management? And estimated costs that's associated with those pieces you have to deal with? Just a, roundabout.
We will have to get back to you on that information.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, though.
Okay, I'd like to make that one of those requests. About how much time you think you would need, a week, 2 weeks?
Councilwoman Andy Smullian, Deputy Chief of Finance and Personnel Services. So that would be a question that we would probably defer to the Law Department as they handle that. So I wouldn't want to give a time limit without consulting them first. But I mean, we'll consult with them in the morning and get back to you as reasonably, as quickly as we can.
Thank you, that's acceptable. Did you get that? Yes.
There's also good news on that front too, ma'am, is that we're starting to, because our technology has gotten better, our documentation has gotten better. We just recently today we won a case of someone who tried to sue the department for wrongful termination, and they lost because we had all of our ducks in a row. 5 years ago, I'm not sure that would have happened. We may have just paid something, and because of all the changes that we made and the partnership with the law department, we've been able to combat some of these issues of people claiming that they were falsely terminated or other things. So we're actually saving some money in that category as well.
So, Madam Chair, I guess I would say like 3 weeks, and if there's a problem, please let the chair know. Thank you, Madam Chair.
No problem. I was thinking it's just a number. You can get your number. We're going to move to Councilman Gray.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, BPD, for all you do. A part of the ecosystem that is part of this historic drop in violence. In FY 2026, BPD created 4 new activities within Service 623, which include Homeland Security, Family Intimate Partner Violence Unit, the Missing and Exploited Persons Unit, and the Arson, Economic Crimes, and SIS Other. How many detectives are assigned to each of these units? And can you please provide us with the scope of what each of these units are focused on by allegations or matter, and what data was used to justify this restructuring? In particular, I want to know about the $23.8 million new line item for operational intelligence section. And if you need an example now, like who investigates child abuse since the child abuse unit was dissolved in FY 2026?
So I can take part of that question. Good evening, Colonel Jack Herzog. I'm the Chief of Detectives. Yes, sir. Chief of Detectives Jack Herzog. So in terms of I'll start with the arson and economic crime. Or actually, I'll start with your first question for the child abuse. So all we did was rename the units to align with how we were operating within SIS, so that the names of the units aligned with the work. So child abuse is investigated by our Family and Intimate Partner Violence Unit. That unit, they investigate our serious domestic crimes as well as our child abuse crimes, vulnerable adult ag assault cases, our arson and economic crimes. They investigate our arson cases, obviously, but also serious fraud investigations, other economic and white collar type of crimes. The other unit that you mentioned was our Missing and Exploited Persons Unit. They handle our missing persons, children 13 and below, as well as vulnerable missing adults. And they also handle our exploited persons, which is another terminology that we use for human trafficking. So they also investigate our human trafficking. We have a sergeant and 4 that investigate, that are in that unit. One of those detectives investigates our ICAC, our internet crimes against children. We also have 1 and 3 that are in our missing persons side of the house of that unit. For economic crimes, we have 2 detectives and a sergeant, and that same sergeant also oversees our arson squad as well. And there's a lieutenant that oversees that entire unit as a whole. And for the family and intimate partner violence, there is a lieutenant over that, 8 detectives, and 2 sergeants. And they also handle animal abuse cases as well.
And what about the sex offender registry?
Sex offender registry, that is a sergeant and 2, and they manage our sex offender registry.
Okay, as a committee request, I would like to see the caseload and outcomes for each of these new units and how they're approving case clearances resulting in prosecutions versus caseloads and clearance rates under the previous CID structure. Just to make sure that this, if, we're renaming them and professionalizing them and restructuring them, if outcomes are better or if they're the same, if they're worse. I think it's good for the public to know, like, if we're going to do this restructuring, if there's any good data or better outcomes from it.
Yes, I mean, I'd be glad to supply those hard numbers, but I can tell you the outcomes are exponentially better. Not because we changed the names, but I think because of a lot of other things that we put in place. We're well above national averages in every crime category. So, I mean, just starting with rape, which is obviously the most serious category that our sex crimes unit handles, we're at a 33.33%. The national average for that is 26.90%. For child abuse, we're at 58.14%. Arson, 45.45%. The national average for that category is 27%.
So I'm sorry, I don't want to cut you off, but and I appreciate that, but what I really want to know in 2 weeks is the outcomes of these new units versus the caseload and clearance rates under the previous one. And I'm only doing that because there's so many questions. I want to make sure that my colleagues get a chance to answer, and I just want to get to my next question. But I do appreciate that. Commissioner, the department routinely reports metrics such as arrests, warrants served, guns recovered, and cases cleared. While those numbers are important, it only tells a part of the story. The true measure of effective police is whether cases are strong enough to withstand persecutorial review and judicial scrutiny. And I want to emphasize that a case being cleared is not the same as successful prosecution and conviction. Does the department systematically track the disposition of cases it formally charges, including cases that are declined for prosecution, placed on stat docket, resolved through null process, dismissed by the court, acquitted, reduction of charges or partial charges dropped, or ultimately those cases that result in successful convictions? If not, why not?
Yes, we have a really good relationship with the state's attorney, the attorney general, and our U.S. attorneys. So anytime we charge a case, you're right, it is different to clear a case than it is to prosecute a case. So once we get the clearance, that does not mean that our work stops. We continue to work with our prosecutors to put the strongest case to a jury or to a judge, because the beyond a reasonable doubt is what the state's attorney has to convict. So we work with them continuously, and if we see something that was missed, or we get lots of times we'll get approval, like with our homicides and our non-fatal shootings. We get approval to charge those cases from the state's attorney before we even go to get a charge. Most of your agencies throughout the country don't do that. They just go get the warrant and then leave it to the prosecutor. We work very closely with Mr. Bates's office, and our attorneys overlook and look at our cases before we even go get the warrant, and then they work together to ensure a proper prosecution. And then we look at our release without charges. We used to have thousands of those go through central booking. Now I think they're in the single or double digits for the year. So we've done a great deal, and it has to do with all the men and women that are on my right and left and sitting behind me, as well as all the detectives out there to continue to push forward, to work with our partners to present the best case, because it doesn't do any good if our clearance rate is 65% and half of those walk from all it does is give a good clearance rate, but that's not what's happening. You can see we have press conferences. The state's attorney has press conferences for when we're convicting these criminals of their acts and holding them accountable.
And so you are tracking the disposition of cases? You are, okay.
Yes.
Perfect. I'm happy to hear that, because I think ultimately, as you said, it's great to put up shiny numbers saying that we cleared X amount of cases, but if people are still walking away and walking home free, if they did violent crime, that's just a number that we can't believe in. So my committee request is, I have another committee request. What percentage of BPD generated cases across the entire department were broken down by BPD districts and criminal investigation divisions over the past 3 years resulted in convictions, guilty pleas, no process dispositions, stat dispositions, declinations by the state's attorney's office, and dismissals by the court, and acquittals.
So we want to give them that request
Yes.
and not the state's attorney's office?
We're gonna, yeah.
Okay.
We're gonna do
I'll
it
let you
tomorrow.
finish, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, we'll follow up with them tomorrow as well, so yeah. And so, yeah, if we could have that as a committee request, did you guys get all that? If not, I can repeat, and we can also just email it over to you as well, Aaron. Thank you for that, and also publicly, because I'm gonna thank the state's attorney's office. We had a big problem at the Emerson Village Shopping Center, and it was a problem that has been going on for as long as I can remember. And with the work of BPD, the state's attorney's office, and the shopping center owner, for the last 2 months, we haven't had any drug activity up there. And so I just want to publicly thank you, state's attorney, and everyone else involved, because that's what true collaboration looks like. And people are starting to notice and actually go up and visit those stores that for years they didn't want to go to. And so I just want to thank you for that. And thank you, Madam Chair. 2 weeks for the committee request.
Councilman Glover.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The budget, and 656, man, you hitting the button. We have a lot of vacancies, and I see that, I heard you mention early on, Commissioner, about there's like roughly maybe 130 in the academy now that we should be getting pretty soon.
There's 3 classes in the academy that are, I think it's 47, 41, and 37. But there's also 2 classes in the entertainment district, which amounts to about 60 officers. Class field training, which is 28. So within the next 6 months, 8 months, we will have roughly about 200, but that doesn't account for the, as officers retire and transition out of the department.
All right, cool. And then, what does the attention rate look like? Like, I mean, for fiscal like 26, was it a net loss? Was it like a net gain?
For officers?
Yeah, for officers.
I believe it was 80, it was a net gain, I think, of 81 or 85, something like that.
Was it roughly around
First
there?
time we had a net gain in the last, I think, 10 or 15 years. One year we had a net gain of 1. Now
Gotcha.
it's 80. It was
Okay.
over 80. So we want to continue to build that. And all that goes back to the fact that the officers, during negotiations, were given a good contract that helped keep a lot of officers who were leaving here. So while that's what we need to do, we got to retain those that we have and then build upon what we need to have come in the door as new officers.
Cool. And then for the for the 630 vacancy positions that we have, and although we have seen a drop in crime in our city, right, and we're like a model of probably so many other cities across the country, I'm still wondering, the positions that we need to get filled, because the budget, you guys have like one of the biggest budgets, in the agency, and I'm looking to find out, how can we fill these positions? I mean, we have, I think it's 2,085 officers, well, sworn officers that are filled. We have 411 sworn vacancies that are still we waiting for. We have 594 professional positions filled and 221 professional vacancies. And are we doing a great job at advertising to try to get folks to join the Baltimore City Police Department, and what are we offering? But also I look at the fact that, what are we doing for the mental health of some of our officers? Because I'm quite sure that there's a lot of overtime that's being, given to many of the officers because we have so many vacancies. And what are we doing to retain the officers that we do have and also provide them with that mental health because of the long hours that they're spending on Baltimore City streets?
Yeah, we have probably, and I'll turn it over to Chief Graham in a minute, we have probably the best officer health and wellness program in the country.
Okay.
Things that we do now that we never did in the past. Officers are given opportunities to speak to clinicians completely anonymous. They've given multiple opportunities to seek different things, and our officer health and wellness has a peer support for our officers. But also every one of those positions, the 411 vacancies, those are basically officers that have to work shifts. Those are filled either with overtime or by, unfortunately, drafting officers, which I really dislike. And that's my goal, to get away from that. So we've looked at a couple different things to try to do that. I'd like to go to 12-hour shifts, but that's not going to happen anytime soon because we don't have enough officers. But I'll turn it over to Chief Graham to continue.
Well, good afternoon. Yeah, on the recruiting side, we have our sites broken out between sworn recruitment and professional recruitment. So if it's okay, I'll start with sworn recruitment. So last year, I think we came to you and talked about our new marketing campaign. So that is something that we've been aggressively relying on. And not only do we have this campaign, but we also look at the data of what's working, what's not working, and the ads that are getting more results. We continue pushing those ads. And then also, we're now about to push for a lateral transfer marketing campaign. Some social media campaigns focusing on female recruitment. In addition to that, we attend recruiting fairs, Not
to cut you off, but we're doing that right now, you're saying, right?
We're doing that right now,
Okay.
yeah. So we attend recruiting fairs. We also are part of special events. There's a new thing we started doing. So we'll be not only at Pride Parade, we'll be in Pride Parade with our recruiting truck that, has recruiting on it. We'll be hanging out recruitment swag. We also, for the police cadets, we go out to the high schools. I believe we've gone to 11 high schools this year to date. And actually, in regards to the recruiting events, we've attended 63 year to date. And last year, we attended 111. So we're constantly trying to be innovative. Not only do we, push the proactive stuff, we also send the team to some recruitment conferences to learn what others are doing and to really try and stay ahead of our partners. And we've also talked about for next year increasing some of the advertisements so that we can expand into other markets and increase our pool. And as I
That's a
mentioned,
question. Is Patterson one of your high schools where you do recruitment at Patterson High School? Just curious to know.
I have a list. I might need to turn it over to my lieutenant to confirm that.
My colleague, he said it is, so he's already.
Our NCOs are.
Yes.
Our
just wanted
NCOs
to make sure.
are in there. I run into them because they're always at the, not always, but I run into them a couple times at the Harbor East Deli where the NCOs will take our junior cadets out to lunch, and I've ran in there a couple times with them.
Gotcha. All right, thanks, colleague.
Yeah,
I
and then in
appreciate
regards to the professional side, last year we hired a recruiter. It had massive success for us. We really increased our hiring numbers on the professional side too. So we had a net increase on the professional side by 59 positions. So we hired 134 people last year. And we really feel a lot of that was because of the proactiveness and having the recruiter. We're actually hiring a second recruiter because of the success of the first recruiter. We're going to actually start attending things with sworn recruitment and get out there and be proactive. We also included in the new marketing campaign components on the professional side. We have our crime lab focused, our investigators, some of the positions that we're using to professionalize. Because in order for this to be sustainable and successful, our professionalization, we have to bring the right people in and we have to keep them. So back to your question about keeping people, so we are working on, the retention plan. We've been working with the I-team. They've been doing research and key building blocks that we can incorporate into our retention plan. We're in the process right now of beginning to recruit for somebody who can develop that plan for us so that we can have a living, breathing document
Do you know,
retention.
do you have a timeline on that individual that you want to hire to, help your plan for us, getting new individuals to join the Baltimore City Police Department? Are we increasing the salaries to make them, get on board?
So the salaries were just increasing for the police officers in the last FOP contract. And I didn't mention this earlier, but back to recruitment, we do have hiring incentives as well. We pay a $10,000 hiring bonus paid when they meet certain milestones. We have a $12,000 incentive for the first year if they move to the city of Baltimore. And we also have referral benefits. We also have student loan repayments. And then also, as part of our contract, we also pay additional pay if you have an associate's degree, bachelor's degree, master's degree.
Cool.
But the entry pay for the police officers is set by the FOP contract.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for answering those questions.
Thank you.
Councilman Schleifer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner, just to echo what the president had said previously, when we got onto this council back in 2016, the department was a complete mess. The administration back then, there was not the same level of support for the men and women of the department. And we are now looking at a completely overhauled department. And, we see a lot of people taking a lot of credit for the crime reduction, but I just want to set the record straight here that nobody deserves more credit than you do for that crime reduction. There has been a lot of logistical issues within the department that have been the leading cause of officer morale issues and operational issues, deployment issues, real logistical things that if people really dig deep into those details, and they look at the changes that you've made since you've gotten there, that is why we are seeing the levels that we're seeing. This is not an accident. This is not just from, one thing or another. And surely there's a lot of people involved who deserve some credit, but I just want to be clear because I haven't heard it said before, but you are the one that has led this department and has changed it, given it a full 180. And every officer I come across, has nothing but good things to say about your leadership, which, as you know, you were a young officer many years ago. And, people historically like to complain about leadership and agencies and the departments they work for, but you're just not hearing that today. So I want to thank you for that.
Thank you. It's somebody told me a long time ago, surround yourself with good people and let them do their job.
Yeah, and you do have a lot of good people. A lot of people in this room are really solid people. Aaron's a great contact for the council, is always responsive on any of our needs at all times of day and night. And so, it really shows. And, when we look at the organizational chart before you versus the organizational chart today, really is a tremendous difference. And that is why we are seeing the department and the officers working as hard as they are today, and why we're seeing that, many situations that could have taken different turns, and previously under previous mayors and previous commissioners, the way it was handled was completely different than the way things are being handled. And so I want to thank you for that.
Thank you.
And so now that I said nice things, I'm gonna air some grievances.
I knew something was coming.
Yeah. Oh, he's tearing up. I have long advocated for the officers in many different avenues. One of the things that you and I spoke extensively about even before you're commissioner is about clearance rates and other things, and we're seeing all of that happen. And a key thing is when we see officers that are working the amount of hours that they're working today, the work environment is very important. And so you fix morale, you fix a lot of that, but the one thing that needs to be fixed is the facility situations. We had a facility hearing years ago where it was brought to our attention from DGS that the worst police station in the entire city is the Northwest District. You've worked there before, you know the hazards that exist there and all the challenges that are there. That district needs to be rebuilt. You know that, everybody knows that. Can you explain to me why the Northeast District should be rebuilt before the Northwest District?
Yes, we actually did a study on those, and there's 5 districts that are in really bad shape because they were all built, I think, in the 50s. You got the Southeast, Eastern, Northeast, Northwest, and Southwest. The Western was also built then, but they were rebuilt after in 2015. So it came down to picking the Northeast or the Northwest. They both scored. One was a 90, one was a 91. The big difference was the Northwest, there was twofold. The Northeast has a parcel of land that we can build on without having to do any demolition and costing any money to demolish the building. And I also have hope that, and the best place to put a public safety facility would be in the Northwest spot where we have what used to be the academy. So I'm hoping that at some point in the future that can be not only the Northwest, but also a public safety facility, which we definitely need for us in the fire department. So it was easier and quicker to get the Northeast done and to move to the Northwest, but we've put, I believe it's $1 million in the budget to make improvements throughout every district, because most of the districts I worked in other than Northern were older districts where you had to put your own, we painted and did things ourselves, but we've made a portion of the garage in the Northwest a gym. And we want to improve that because I go to some of these other facilities in these other states and cities, and I see what the officers come to. And you've got to get them off to a good start. I worked in the Southwest where we had no air conditioning for a whole summer. So they have gotten a lot better, but it was a tough decision between Northeast and Northwest. And because of the extra, I think it was $14 million for demolition of the current site, and the delay that it would have taken to get that site demolished and rebuilt, we chose the Northeast for now. And also with the hope that the Northwest can be the site of our public safety facility and the Northwest District.
Yeah, so, I mean, a lot of those numbers, and I've seen the numbers, I think those are like Baltimore City government numbers, not actual reality numbers. But with that being said, which one was 90 and which one was 91?
I think we averaged them and they were both 90 and a half together. Northwest was the one. The Northwest did score higher as far as being replaced.
Thank you for your honesty on that. I'm gonna let it go. Thank you.
I mean, I wasn't here for the last, what was it, Northeast, Northwest debate? Because I don't know where the Northeast people is on this council. Oh, all right.
Any day, any day, any day.
I met the commissioner as a mayor. He was a major in Northeast. I wasn't even the staff. We was walking down Harford Road.
I left that part out, ma'am. You're not helping me.
I was gonna mention it for you. Thank you, Councilman Schleifer. Councilman Jermaine Jones.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question, first of all, congratulations on all your success and dedication to the city. I guess my question is in regards to Service 622, the police patrol. Just as a council person whose district covers at least 3 different police districts, I recognize that not every district is the same, especially when it comes to manpower and like what they have at their disposal. And I know oftentimes there's certain districts, special units that can kind of help and support those districts. Just wondering, have you all like looked at when it comes to police patrol and like how we can almost evenly distribute, or just kind of what's the thought process behind, I guess, certain districts having extra patrol folks, it seems like sometimes, and extra just bodies, and some of them seem a little thinner than other ones at times.
Yeah, I look, believe it or not, I probably look at this thing in my sleep as to see how I balance this out. And our staffing chart actually has, our strength report actually has percentages on it. And most of our districts, believe it or not, are relatively balanced out. Now, what you have is you have some districts who have officers who are off. Like, for example, there's 2 districts that have 12 officers assigned to patrol that are unable to work for either injuries or other reasons. And then there's other districts that have 3. So it's all of them are roughly around 70%, 60% as far as staffing. Each time a class comes out, we look at that and we decide, okay, this district needs a certain amount of people. But there's also some things that our district commanders have to do. For example, the Western District was the shortest for a while, but I couldn't send them officers because they didn't have enough training officers to train them, and they have to be able to train them. And I refused to send an officer to a district to field train in the Southwest and then basically send them to the Western and start their career already not knowing where they were at. So we fixed that, but we constantly look at that. The fact that we're still 400 officers short does affect patrol a lot more. We started the David shift, which allows us to, where we don't have to draft officers from midnight very often. And the whole goal for me to go to 12-hour shifts is to make sure we don't have to do any drafting whatsoever. But every time we've tried to change our shifts in the past, we always tried to cut corners and start it with less than we needed. And I refuse to do that. If we don't have enough officers, which is a little more than 700 in patrol, we can't do 12-hour shifts. So right now we're at 602. But for example, there are 602 officers assigned to patrol the districts. Only 528 of them are available because of injuries, suspensions, and different things. So, and that fluctuates each week.
All right, so I guess so my first question is the numbers that you said, and when it's all evenly, does that factor in the special units as well? Or that's without factoring special units? Some place you have extra officers assigned, like entertainment districts. Is that on top of it, or is that kind of factored out?
It's entertainment district is different because that falls under the central.
Yeah.
And the central has an entertainment district, which is usually only about 10 officers.
Mm-hmm.
Those other 50 that transition in, they transition in and out. Every district now has one district action team. Every district has one neighborhood coordination team. So the district's numbers are all about the same, except the central is the anomaly because of the entertainment district.
Okay. Besides entertainment district, there's like special units too. There's like some district has special units.
Yeah,
and
district action. Everybody has one team.
Okay. Okay.
And it's basically a sergeant and 6. Now, some of them don't fill the roles as quickly as they would like, so they may only have a sergeant and 2 working at a time. And then you have one, for example, at one point, one district's entire district action team was off the street because they got involved in a police-involved shooting, which means they can't be on the street for a certain period of time.
And I believe they're still out as far as what I understand. So
Probably are, yes.
yeah, and they are. And I guess that's kind of one of my questions. It's been going on for months. Is there a strategy in which, if you know they may be out for months, that we can shift resources so certain communities aren't, struggling during the time? I know we have to go through our process and they have to be relieved by the state's attorney and so forth. But so we can kind of fill in the gaps so we aren't spreading the rest of our men and women thin.
We do, and I'll let DC Jones, that's his caveat, is the operations department to move those resources.
Yep, so, we're constantly, Deputy Commissioner Jones, Operations. So we're constantly aware of this. This is something that we not only talk about on our crime call every day, but also on ComStat. So I leave it to my chief of patrol as well as my lieutenant colonels for the area. They're aware of those districts that for unfortunate reasons, they may be down the DAT team. They may be down the neighborhood services officers for one reason or another. It's indicative upon them reaching out to either Colonel Velty, our city robbery team. They fill that gap with additional outside resources. While they may not be able to be there all the time, we are well aware of when we need to be there, using our data-driven strategies to say, hey, look, these are the high days, these are the high times when we need you there. It's a balancing act. It's an orchestra. You want to fill the gap that may be in the district, but if we're seeing a carjacking crew rolling around, we've got to play cat and mouse sometimes. We don't want to really chase the crime. We want to be there before the crime happens. So we are well aware of that. There's constant talking between all of the operations bureaus. I literally had my colonels meetings today with all of my chiefs and colonels. We talked about that, about coordination, about working together, because it's important that, real quick, if you give me a little time, a challenge coin I have last week when I went to Police Week, on the back of it, it says Stronger Together. And what it did is it brought, on my coin, I have youth and community, I have CID, I have patrol, I have all of my operations units on one coin, and believing that each part needs the other to be successful. So I expect them to talk to each other constantly of where the gaps are to fill those gaps.
Okay. No, thank you for that clarification. I appreciate it. And I always appreciate a data-driven strategy. So I'll try to give you as much data as possible to let you know where some of those gaps at, because some of them districts, the men and women are spread thin.
They are spread thin. I think, the commissioner and Velty and some of us are of a certain age where, while I believe that there is a place for specialized units within the district and externally, I also do believe that there is a responsibility held by every police officer and every post officer. When I was a patrolman, it was great for operations to be out there for drugs unit downtown, but at the end of the day, that was my drug corner. That was my area, and I wore that with pride, that when I came out on the street, you should know that there's going to be a difference on this 4 to 12 shift. So while I expect that operations gives them the boost to do additional things, I still expect my patrol officers to be out there providing a good service to the citizens of Baltimore.
All right, and just last question really quickly, since you brought up corner and patrol corner.
I take it back.
No, it's already there. One of the challenges I, talk back and forth about the officers with, and even hear from the community residents, is when there are young men on the corner, doing what people kind of already know, community could know, like, look, they're selling drugs or whatever, open that drug market. But the challenge of, I guess traditionally residents are used to seeing, officers going on the corner, interacting with them, and figuring that out. But because of the consent decree, that policy of just interacting with folks who are just standing on the corner, it's my understanding, what I've been told, can no longer happen. What is the strategy to, if residents are doing their part, watching their neighborhood, calling 911, saying I see people on the corner selling drugs, what's the next step in order to deter that from happening so people don't feel comfortable just serving in residential neighborhoods where people have to live?
Yeah, I think it's about, I'm sorry, sir.
Yeah, I'm going to start with that, and then I'll turn it over to DC Jones. The consent decree really doesn't have anything to do with that.
Okay.
It's the Constitution that we always didn't follow many years ago, hence we're in the consent decree. And what I try to explain, and I know a lot of people want everyone cleared off the corner, but it's not illegal to stand on the corner. You can stand on the corner. You have to be able to articulate that they are blocking the free flow of pedestrian or vehicular traffic, and that requires different things. But the officers by no means can't get out of the car. They can get out of the car and walk up and talk to them. That's usually the policy. Go talk to them. They don't want to talk to us. They'll start walking away. Some of them will, and if they engage them. But the consent decree by no means has hindered our ability to enforce the law within the Constitution. Go ahead, Kev.
No, to the PC's point, he's 100% correct. I hear the conversations, I think you do too, and, some individuals will say that the consent decree has handicapped us, right? Handcuffed us. I believe it gave us a blueprint and four corners of what we can do constitutionally. There is nothing stopping an officer from getting outside of his car and interacting with anyone. And it's just that simple. If you see something afoot in front of you, some kind of crime, we expect our officers to deal with it, right? But there's nothing, if you believe that you haven't seen something, but the fact that Miss Johnson can't go to the corner store without going through 15 individuals and a cloud of marijuana smoke, that's a problem. That's a problem for Miss Johnson. And what I expect for the officers to do is to get out of his or her car, interact with that group. Hey, I heard Troy Smith is the new head coach of Edmondson. I heard, so-and-so's got this going on. What do you think about the draft last week? Those small conversations that you have with individuals is enough sometimes to disperse that crowd. With that, the use of the watch center and our cameras, unfortunately, a lot of times when there is narcotics violations, the arrest that happens, you don't see it within that camera footage because the individual has made the purchase, has walked off, has driven off. The car stop happens 2 blocks away. You just don't see the end results of it. So I will say we continue to use 911 as a catalyst for a lot of our calls, but using our data-driven strategies, our cameras, we're making those arrests. And when we aren't, we need to let us know because I think for us, there's a percentage of dosage that officers need to respond to certain corners in reference to having an effect on that corner and changing the trajectory of what that corner can produce. But also in the same vein, being a Baltimore City resident and denizen, when I drive through a specific area on the east side, I may get out my car and say hi to somebody. And I don't want to get caught up in something that just because I got out the car and said hi to somebody I went to school with. Maybe it's somebody who I say, hey, why are you still out here? What's going on? You've been doing this for 15 years. At some point, enough is enough, right? So we have to be able to separate the wheat from the chaff. But I do expect and want my officers to get out the car and engage those corners. And when I'm hearing they're not, if you see that they are not, then we have a problem. And that's when I need my lieutenant colonels and other commanders to address those issues.
Thank you for your answer, and thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, and thank you to both of you for stating. I think that we need to get this on the record. There is no policy. There's no section within the consent decree that says that officers cannot engage with individuals on the corner. The consent decree is there to make sure that we know not that we, because I'm not a police officer, that BPD is policing constitutionally, as was mentioned. But thank you for your question, and thank you both. We are going to Councilman Blanchard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner, good to see you. I don't know why everyone keeps talking about your age tonight. You look great to me. So I want to talk about the budget. I think it's a $44 million year-over-year increase, and our budget chief, I didn't quite catch her name, but
Charlotte Graham. Charlotte Graham.
Graham?
Yes.
Okay,
go with
gotcha,
that.
thank you. Chief Graham had mentioned $22 million was from the improved FOP contract. And so I was curious if you could talk through what the other 22 million increase is.
Yes, I'd be happy to do so. A lot of the residual, about 15 million, was to do with basically inflationary costs for our contracts. A big one was the body-worn cameras, tasers, records management system, but that's locked us into a 10-year contract now. So that money will be set, but it was really inflationary increases. There were some small increases associated with facilities, mainly the allocation that we pay GGS for our facilities. In addition to that, some increases with vehicle upfitting based, again, on inflationary costs.
Okay, so 22 million increase in salaries, 15 million increase in external contracts, and then roughly 7 million increase in facilities and similar type things? Okay. And I'll never understand why it's so hard to grasp this stuff maybe one of these years I'm gonna understand this, but when I read through the budget books. But, so can you talk through the 22 million in the salary increases, how that, like what the change was from year to year? Is it just like hey, it's now 6% more than it was last year, or are there other things that are being baked in that are?
So there's other things that are baked in there. So there's the cost of living adjustments that are in the FOP contract, but then there's other things like the on-call pay, shift differential. For the first time, and actually this will save the city money in the long term, they can sell back vacation, so they can sell it back based on today's dollars versus us carrying the liability on the books and then paying that at a higher rate when they retire. So it's basically the current cost of the contract that was negotiated, the 3-year contract. 2 years.
Okay.
I can explain that a little because I think that one confused you a little.
No, I got it, because the Marine Corps actually did a similar change when I was in, so
That is going to be huge for our officers because what it does, it allows us to pay them at officer rates as opposed to, like for me, for example, when I leave, you're going to have to pay, I get paid at a commissioner's rate that I earned at an officer. I mean, it collected interest for 27 years, but.
Yeah, I can see the win-win. Yeah, I can see the win-win of if you want the money now, you can get it now, and also the department over the long term is able to. Okay.
And another idea for that is cops love that check at the end of the year. Mm-hmm. So if they'll sell back the time, that means they won't use it during the year, which gives us opportunities and savings and overtime, because instead of taking those 12 days of vacation, they're going to work them, and then we're going to pay them at their straight time and save the overtime.
Yep.
And everybody's happy, and they get the check just before Christmas.
Right. And then, sorry, did Chief?
Yeah, I wanted to correct myself. I said it out of habit. I said 3-year contract, but it is a 2-year contract, so that was a mistake on my part, so thank you.
Okay. And then second question, overtime. So we have the 88 new officers at this point. Hopefully it's going to be, 150, more next year or whatever. So we should be seeing a stabilization, I guess, or a drop in the overall overtime numbers being used. I see Chief Murphy saying no. But either way, so the two pieces of the question: one, how does the overtime, how does the projected overtime compare to year? And then the second question is this budget, I get there's some, right, like the nature of overtime aspects of it are unanticipated, right? But we want to, I think, as a council, want to avoid, $40 million supplementals, $50 million supplementals. And it's hard to do an apples to apples comparison of budgets year over year without that. So what are we projecting for overtime? And then do we feel we are adequately funding that in the budget?
Well, I'll tell you, last year, and this tells you how the money-wise, we are going over our budget. But in the opening, we are going to work 100,000 less overtime hours than we did in 2025. But because of the increases in salary and benefits, the dollar amount is going to be higher than, we're going to exceed our budget in 2026.
Then shouldn't we just project that into the fiscal year budget?
That's a question beyond my pay grade.
Okay, well, I mean, we got mayor's office here. Can we talk through that one?
Yeah, so for fiscal 26, we reported at the third quarter projection hearing, which I think was 2 or 3 weeks ago, that BPD was expected to end with about a $20 million general fund deficit. That is an improvement from the prior year. And so it's likely that we'll have to come at the end of the year and ask for a supplemental, but it is significantly lower than last year. What we've done in the budget, and this is on the, in the intro to the police section, we do try to right-size the agency's budget based on how many positions they've filled, because they still have, I think we said about 400 or so, vacant officer positions. So, assuming that stays level, we try to right-size that overtime budget. And what I would call kind of the real overtime budget next year is about $36 million. I think it will take some improvement for them to land within budget next year. And, as they improve, if they hire more positions during the year, there should naturally be less overtime spending, of course, because if they have those positions filled, there's less need to pull it back on overtime. So we try to set the budget, a real budget based on the expected vacancy for the year. There's nowhere they're going to fill all 400 positions. We know that.
So I got you, Mr. Sinema. And to be clear, like, same conversations with fire. Like, my issue is not with the need for overtime. It's not the overall cost of the overtime budget. It's having it being baked on the front end. And it just sounds like you just gave me a really good in-depth prediction of what we're going to need. So
the overtime budget for this year is, again, in the front page of the book, it's $36.1 million. You can kind of back into how many hours.
And what did we have last year?
I don't have it right in front of me. I'll have to look that up.
That is and I do remember seeing that in the booklet this year. I know in past years that is not usually in the booklet, and so I appreciate the transparency from the BBMR side. But
And some things that affect our budget that we are going to do the very best we can to stay within it, but there are things that we can't predict. For example, this past year, we had an Orioles game and the cycling classic on the same day. That cost us $600,000. Ravens outside traffic is about $60,000 per game, plus inside because we have to cancel leave. The CIAA is $500,000. New Year's Eve was $190,000, and I could already tell you, coming up, I think sometime in the next couple months, we have an Orioles and a Ravens game on the same day, and these things pop up if we get a dignitary visit, or simply we get a crime spike, and then we gotta. So it's almost impossible for us to predict. But our plan is to try to stay as close as we can under the budget. We look at this stuff every single day.
I got you. I appreciate it, Commissioner. I'll just end by saying it does seem to me, and this is for BPMR and the mayor's office, it does seem to me that the administration has made an intentional effort to do better for this upcoming budget. I think there's still things that need to be fleshed out. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. What is the percentage of special event overtime for the police department year to date compared to every other area within that you guys generate for overtime?
Yeah, so we have a dashboard that shows that. So we're projecting probably about just under $3 million for special events. So that is probably like, and it's not budgeted. So hold on a second. I'm trying to look at the dashboard. So about $3 million, and our projected spending's $52.5 million.
And another thing that kind of affects us that we can't predict is with police and fire. For example, when the mayor graciously gave everybody Christmas Eve off.
Commissioner, I was getting at something on that. The issue is that our other public safety agency came before us and they said, hey, special events, special events, special events. But then when we take the percentage of special events for their agency, and then we take the other percentages that's actually driving the overtime, it's like, hey, if we talking about overtime, we don't want to hear special events because it's $3 million.
For us,
for you guys, and your total budget is up here. So I guess I was just looking for, I can do that in my head, the 3% of 50, what was it, 52 million?
Yes, about 5.7, about just under 6%.
Yeah, so we want to hear about what's really driving it. And that's what I was getting at by just getting that percentage. And thank you. I know you got something to add, Commissioner, and I thought you had something else. So, you good?
Again, some of the like with the overtime and going over the budget, when like I said, when the mayor graciously gave I think it was Christmas Eve and another holiday, the police and the fire department can't close. So we ended up paying $1.3 million to our members on those days. Because everybody else can just shut down and not come to work, we can't do that. And according to our contract, which is very driven, is there's things that we can't do, and there's when we have to, for example, when we have to pull in people for a special event. Our contract stipulates our officers have to have 45% of the weekends off, which is Saturday and Sunday. Every Ravens game is almost on a Sunday other than a night game here and there. So everybody you see out there directing traffic has probably got canceled penalty pay and overtime.
Understood. What's the largest? I don't have the dashboard in front of me, so I apologize. What is the largest, what's the category, the largest driver of your overtime, and what's that percentage compared to that total of 52 million, please?
Yeah, so we have lots of different ways to classify staffing shortages, but if you want the actual category from the dashboard, it's patrol constant staffing shortages, and it's $11 million.
And that was the largest driver?
Yeah, but there's other staffing categories, but patrol constant staffing shortages, yes.
Can you add up all the overtime that has to do with staffing, please?
Yeah, and that percentage is 21%.
When we add all that up, is that the largest driver?
It is, but if you want staffing shortages in its entirety, I'd have to add up all the staffing shortages categories because we use this dashboard to find the driver of the staffing shortages. So we've got patrol constant staffing shortages. We've got staffing shortages because we didn't have to draft. But I can quickly add that up and tell you what the staffing shortages number is.
It's cool. I guess when we talk about overtime within this committee, we want to hear about the biggest drivers.
Yeah.
So we want to hear about, it seems like staffing is the biggest driver.
Yeah.
Overall. So that's what we want to talk about when we're speaking about overtime. And I'm just throwing it out there in case we get any additional questions about overtime during this hearing.
Yeah, it is patrol staffing, and it's our staffing and the patrol staffing and investigations is our biggest driver.
Yes, sir. Thank you. We're going to go to Councilwoman Ramos.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. I have questions not related to overtime. During our discussions about the Safe Spaces and Communities Act, and I appreciate your help on that, we had, the three of us who were the sponsors of the bill, made it very clear that there are times when our community doesn't know Baltimore City Police from the people that they're trying to avoid. And there hasn't been good language coming from the police department as to how to tell the difference, as well as talking points for us, as well as NCOs and others, because there are a lot of questions. What we don't want to have happen during this time when we're basically terrorized by the federal government is that people are not trusting our police department. And we have to make that very clear distinction. And we have to not only wear different uniforms, obviously, but also send the messaging out in some way. So I'm curious, when are we going to expect to see that? I understood that you were going to hire somebody to help us with that. When are we going to be able to see that?
Good evening. Erin Murphy, Chief of Staff and Government Affairs. Yes, thank you. Thank you for the bill. I know we worked hard on it. I know you guys worked hard on it. We are working with the Mayor's Office, MEMA, and our communications department on sort of a unified message. I mean, I will say, you know, in terms of the uniform, our uniform does say Baltimore Police on the back, but we are working on what we talked about, which is a more global campaign, but we are doing that in collaboration with the Mayor's Office team and obviously also other agencies that are also affected. So we are working on it.
Do we have a time frame?
I can let you know. I'm not communications, but we did, you know, we hired a new director of government communications that you know, John Marsh, who we took from fire, sorry fire, but we are going to.
I already gave him a hard time about it.
Oh, you did? Okay. Well, you still have him. He's just with us. But yes, we are going to work on it. I'll let you know a timeline. I don't control the communications that comes out of this, but I will let you know.
Okay, so Madam Chair, if we could get a committee request that I would get an update on that, you know, within a couple of weeks as to the time frame for this marketing campaign. My second question is unrelated. I am the new chair of the Human Trafficking Task Force. I do need to meet with you, Chief Herzog, but I want to understand a little bit more about how many detectives are actually assigned to human trafficking investigations. We're not seeing as many investigations and prosecutions that we should be, given the vast amount that we're seeing online, that we have hearing stories on the ground. We are doing a poor job as a city of prosecuting the bad guys. And that's not one person's fault, but I need to understand how the police department is going to, and how many people that you've assigned to this. We can get more details when we meet, but I want to just be real clear because it's not clear at all in the budget book. It looks like you've combined some things into missing and exploited persons unit, which means that expands the number of things that you have to do with limited resources. So I'm just trying to understand where things are there.
Absolutely, and I really appreciate that question because, you know, as you know from our hearing that we had, this is something that is a focus for us this year. So in our actual human trafficking squad, there are 4 detectives, it's a sergeant and 4 that are part of that. We combine that with missing persons because we know that a lot of times there are a lot of correlations between missing kids, missing teenagers, and human trafficking. So it's a very unique fit between the two. And so one thing that we've done this year that I can talk to you about when we meet is that we have enhanced our screening capabilities of missing people. I think you'll find it pretty interesting when we discuss that. Some other things that we've done this year. So we hosted a training alongside with Monzi specific to human trafficking that was open to the entire department. So we wanted to raise that awareness and knowledge to be able to try to get more victims identified. A lot of times these are identified through your patrol officers as well on the front end, and they make the notifications to the human trafficking unit. We've met with all of our partners. That includes the state's attorney's office on several times since that last meeting. That was obviously a communication gap that we identified from that hearing. We've performed hotel stings to target the demand side of this as well. Street level surveillance and enforcement, which has yielded some positive results for us. There have been 25 total arrests for offenses that are related to solicitation of prostitution. On that end, there's been a focus this year as well on solicitation of minor cases. We made 3 total arrests. There's additionally 4 additional arrest warrants for that. We've increased our outreach efforts through that unit as well. There's been 60 total instances of us providing some type of outreach effort, roll call trainings, and then we're finalizing education through a human trafficking awareness video that we're going to have external and internal. We're also increasing our partnership with Metro Crime Stoppers to try to solicit more human trafficking tips from the public, and we're also working with partners to increase signage around transit hubs, which is obviously another area where human trafficking victims, are commonly frequent. So really working on enhancing what we're doing within that unit. As you mentioned, obviously we would love to have a lot more people there. We're working on some things that I'd be happy to talk to you about when we meet one-on-one, kind of offline, that we're looking at doing to expand some partnerships to force multiply within human trafficking to better our efforts on that. But I am pleased so far that we have made some improvements this year. This is something, again, this is a focus for the Lieutenant Colonel and I both, that we put a lot of effort on this front.
Do you have working on the social media investigations too? Because a lot of this is happening on social media. It's not just, people on the light rail. I mean, it's happening through social media. And so there's got to be investigations of what's happening there.
Yes. So we...
You have a whole unit on social media watching,
We do, and that's also part of what our unit does. There's specific programs and things that we use to identify sex ads online so that we can then screen and conduct investigations to determine if they are potential trafficking victims. We utilize those same platforms to cross-compare from missing people to determine if potential missing people are being trafficked or involved in some type of sex work. So yes, we do that. That is something that we do on a daily basis as well. We currently have 3 trafficking investigations that we're actively working with the State's Attorney's Office at this current time that are currently ongoing.
I'm just wary that it sounds like you're kind of mixing a lot of things together. I get that there are some things that are related. Sometimes missing kids are being trafficked and, sometimes, they're not. And so it's going to be really important that we have a real focus on this. The social media part is really important. I mean, there's ads all over the place and we can't just dedicate 1 or 2 people to that. I mean, that's huge. That is exactly where it's all happening and it has to be dedicated work. So I'm looking forward to continuing to work with you on this, but I think that there's a lot of improvement to be made here. If you need some resource, I can't believe I'm just about to say this, but we just need to we'll move some from one part of the police department to your department to be able to get the resources that you need to be able to do this, because it is a big deal in our city, as we learned at the training. I-95 corridor is a big deal relative to human trafficking, and so it's a city approach, but it's also a regional approach that we have to have. And I'm still learning. But I think that it's something that we absolutely need to make it's more, there's a lot of bad guys out there. We need to get them all. So I appreciate your emphasis on this, and I look forward to meeting with you, directly about this.
Yes, ma'am, I look forward to it as well. I think you're going to like a lot of the things that we'll discuss in that meeting.
Thanks. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councilman Parker?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Commissioner and staff. I wanted to start in 622 and Police Patrol, and I know you all covered a little bit the kind of moving parts here, but I wanted to see if we get just a few more details on them. And that is to say the net decrease, well, the transfer of 90 positions out of that. Would you break down for us, I know the one that you talked about extensively was moving over to the recruitment, the trainee section. I think that was 50 or so of them. But if you can break out where the 90 went, just so we can track all of them, because 50 is a good chunk, but not the entirety.
Yeah, I can give you the big ones, but the onesies and twosies, I'm going to have to get back to you.
That's fine.
So you're correct. 49 was to move to new recruits because we're hiring more people, and 41 was to move to operational intelligence, and that was for the BCICs that were previously under the command of patrol and then moved to the command of criminal intelligence. But the onesies and twosies, I do apologize. I need to get back to you.
That's totally fine. That was really what I needed. How many of those 90 were vacant?
I would need to look at that, but I can tell you all the ones that moved to recruitment were vacant because we needed them vacant so we could put people in them.
I kind of thought as much, and then the 41 that went.
Yeah, I'd need to look at that.
None of those were vacant. What happened is our BCICs were in the 9 districts or in the 7 districts. They were falling under the realm of the district commander. And instead, we wanted to put them under crime strategies and intelligence division. So they didn't come out of the officers that are answering the calls, because most people think patrol was just the officers handling it. These were the individuals that were doing the crime intel, and the BCICs were just moved over under crime strategies and intelligence section. So everything is streamlined into one spot.
Great. No, I really appreciate that. Of the ones that were vacant that had moved over to recruitment, how many of them have been vacant for more than 18 months?
I mean, they're police officers. So as you know, this trend of, not having a net positive has impacted major police departments across the country since COVID. So there would have been some of them over 18 months, but as we've mentioned, we're now filling these positions. And I think last time when we came and did this meeting last year, we were nearly 500 vacancies, and now we're at 408. So we're seeing progress. But yes, there was probably positions in there that were vacant over 18 months. But one of the things, and this goes back to our overtime conversation, all of these salary savings across the agency are reprogrammed back into overtime. So whether it's the SWAN, that has to be reprogrammed back into overtime because we still have to respond to 911 calls for service. We still have to provide the same level of service even though we don't have the bodies. And even on the professional staff too, that's true as well. You think about some of our areas, emergency dispatches, that's an area where we have high turnover, and we're working with the labor commissioner on trying to resolve some of those issues. But because we do have high turnover, we have to staff that. So even those salary savings get programmed back into overtime.
I really appreciate that. If I could make a committee request, just of those, of the 49, just how many of them were below 18 months or above 18 months in terms of the vacancy distance? And none of that's meant as a criticism. I understand the rationale and the reasoning. I'm really excited that it's an incredibly positive thing that we're dropping our vacancy rate. It's an incredibly positive thing that we're seeing more recruits coming through and that we're making these changes. At what point do the pins transfer back? I mean, at what point do they come off the rolls of the trainee division or the recruitment division and get back on patrol? At what point in their process? Like, for example, the officers that are currently doing a great job with EDU, are they now considered patrol from a budgetary perspective?
No, they're still not counted in the patrol district yet. They won't be counted until they actually transition out of the entertainment district and go to the district. They all know where they're going, but technically they're detailed to the entertainment district. And then, for example, I think it's June the 8th or 9th, 35 of them that are on that are now in the entertainment district will transition out to the district. So that patrol staffing number will go up by 35.
That's great, and it's been so good. I mean, the entertainment district has been game changing across for a number of us. So really appreciate that move. My second question is to do with the homicide unit in particular. How many detectives do we have in homicide at the moment? I saw the total budget, but it didn't say how many pins it was, so I just was curious.
Currently, there's 46 detectives.
46. I know that obviously it's a fantastic thing, the progress that unit has made, the incredibly decreasing numbers in homicides, non-fatal shootings as well. I know they're handled by district folks. And so for a long time, we knew that one of the reasons that our clearance rate was so low was because we had way too many cases per detective. Recognize that every city is different. What's the what's the best quality? I mean, what's the caseload that we're actually aiming for? Is then like this is a good stable caseload for a homicide detective. I mean, obviously we want 30 detectives and 0 homicides. But in terms of general practice, what's the best case scenario?
No, so in the past, you're right. For years, we were more than 10 cases. In similar cities, it's around 4 to 6, but I think best case scenario, we're talking around 3 cases per detective gives us that best result. As of today, with where we're at in the year, we're at 1.1. That does not include all of the other death investigation types that we do handle within our homicide section as well. So if you factor them in, their caseload is higher. It's more around 11 cases per detective. But obviously, a lot of those cases don't take as long as the actual murders, but significantly lower. And that is one of the reasons why I think we've been a little bit more successful.
Great, I appreciate that. And again, none of that's a question of wanting to decrease the homicide numbers, homicide unit staffing. And yet, as we see, hopefully sustained growth, continued growth because of that, at some point, I mean, there's other needs across the district where we might be freeing up some staff to head in other directions. So I'm not saying we're there yet, but wanted to ask the question now because we're starting to get back to what constitutes a more normal caseload, which is a great thing, and we see continued positive results because of that. Thank you.
Exactly. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councilwoman Porter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to follow up on Councilman Gray's point about Service 623. I noticed that we have an operational intelligence section, which is funded in Service 623, but also in Service 626. The data-driven strategy seems to only reference operational intelligence division. Could you provide me with a understanding of what the new unit is, particularly for data-driven strategies? And the reason why I bring it up is because those two service lines equate to $33.8 million. And so I'm not sure what the difference is between the two units.
Yeah, good evening, Colonel Velty, Chief of Crime Strategies and Intelligence Division. I think some of what you're saying, well, what you are seeing is a restructure more than new units coming on board. To Commissioner Worley's point, in April of 2025, there was a rework. Things that were previously under patrol assets or CID were collapsed into CSID, Crime Strategies and Intelligence Division was created. There were 3 sections underneath of that: Operational Intelligence section, Homeland Security section, and Data-Driven Strategies. Homeland Security section was previously just special events and criminal intel up under CID. Those are now housed up under the Homeland Security section. OIS, the Operational Intelligence section, houses all of your GVU detectives, undercovers, BCICs, intel officers, federal task force, things of that nature. And then Data-Driven Strategies is open source, City Watch, the Watch Center, and then of course our CompStat unit and accountability measures, mapping out proactivity, crime trend spikes, deployment, things of that nature.
Did you all share that restructuring with the Public Safety and Government Operations Committee?
That I will have to follow up on.
Okay, that's an official committee request, please. And if you can provide the actual hearing date, that would be great. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thanks. Councilwoman Porter, what's your timeline on a committee request?
It can be like a week. Yeah, it can be a week.
Thank you. We're going to go to Council President Cohen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to pick up where Councilmember Blanchard left off in talking about overtime as well as some of the costs that we should be able to project into our budget and yet are not projected into our budget. Bob, how much do we spend each year, or BPD, on sporting events, Orioles, Ravens, et cetera?
I would defer to the department for the details if they have that.
Most of that money, and it depends on if you're talking about the money that we spend and reimbursed or the money that we're not reimbursed on.
Not reimbursed.
We'd have to do, the Orioles are pretty much always reimbursed because they pay, we build them, we start to bill them. The Ravens pay for whoever's inside of the stadium. But the traffic control that's outside is basically a courtesy that's given to them. That's roughly about $50,000 to $60,000 per game. And then if there are additional officers needed inside that require us to cancel leave, and we have to pay penalty pay, that also increases the cost.
Might it be worth restructuring our contract with the Ravens? That seems like quite a bit to be shelling out. And I want to be clear, love the Ravens, love seeing people come from all over the region and the state to come support our teams. But why are the taxpayers of Baltimore City paying for a whole bunch of costs that we are not utilizing on our own? That is a collective cost, and why shouldn't the sports team itself, which is generating the revenue off of the ticket sales and concessions and all the rest, like why is it that the Orioles pay for it but Ravens don't?
Well, the Orioles don't have any outside traffic, so they don't pay for any outside traffic. The amount of people that the Ravens attract into the city is about 70,000 a game, and it requires traffic enforcement outside, and the Ravens have just never paid for that. They do reimburse us for who work, all of our members that work inside, as well as the other agencies that work, because we can't staff every position for the Ravens, so we go to the other agencies, state police, natural resources. We offer them all an opportunity to come in and work in the stadium together, so that we're not getting hit with penalty pay and extra costs inside. But I don't think the city we've ever charged them for the outside traffic control.
Yeah, again, I'll just say, I think that puts a significant strain on our residents and our budget. And as we think about regionalism and how do we support each other, we've started to have some conversations about our water system and the city and the county. It just feels like that expense, that added burden of 50 to 60K per game to have our cops directing traffic, that does not feel like a good expenditure for this department if it is not reimbursed. I see Madam CA.
Hello.
Coming up to the
So
mic.
just to shed a little bit more light on this, so we've actually been in discussions. It's not necessarily with the teams, it's with the Stadium Authority because it's supporting the area around the Stadium Authority complex. So we've had some initial conversations with their attorneys and our folks about support for the outside of the complex. Some of the initial feedback that we received a portion of the admissions and amusement tax, which their folks would argue is to support some of that work that happens outside of the complex. Obviously, we would disagree. So again, these are ongoing discussions. We've already started them. I'm a member of the Stadium Authority Board, so I've brought this up multiple times, that we need an agreement not only for the inside of the complex, but also for the outside. And so while we're talking about BPD in particular, we don't get any support for DOT whatsoever. Mm-hmm. Fire and BPD have agreements. DOT has no agreements. Right. So just wanted to assure this council that we've already been in those conversations and we're going to continue having those conversations.
On that point, approximately, do you know about how much total we spend on games? To your point, DOT, BPD, the whole show.
I do. Give me a second. So before each Ravens game, I actually do a game day meeting, so I can actually tell you the staffing numbers. But one of my team members has the amount that we spend per game, so I can get it to you shortly.
Okay.
But we have to have, so for example, and I know Ryan's watching, but for example, the minimum staffing requirement for traffic enforcement is 88. So and generally we don't have 88 TOs because we only have budgeted, I think staffing TO wise, we have 80 something TOs. So that means every single traffic enforcement officer will have to work. So BPD usually supplements the TOs so that we can get the minimum of 88 outside. Inside, is it 40 for BPD? It's 40 something. It's like 46 officers inside. But how much is the agreement? 100? Yes. So we get $100,000 for the 46 officers that are inside. But I think what the commissioner was saying is that if he has to cancel days for people to be inside, it's gonna cost more money than the 100,000 that they give us in the agreement. And oftentimes, because we have to meet we have to meet the requirement inside, but then also the officers are supporting outside. So he has to cancel days in order to be able to cover inside and outside. And that's where the additional cost comes, that's over and above what was negotiated. So and then I also have brought in housing and finance because we also enforce those illegal lots, for example. So we were getting lots of complaints about, illegal parking lots in communities and neighborhoods. So we brought in finance, who manages the lots, and DHCD for enforcement. So on every Ravens game, that's the best example I can give. For every Ravens game, you're talking about probably 150 or so city employees between DOT, BPD, housing, finance. Who else? I'm not including the sheriff's office, but the sheriff's office has their own agreement, I believe, with the MSA because they were doing illegal vendor enforcement. So, it takes a lot. And we've also looked at other cities. So, Lindsey Jackson, in the mayor's office, looked at how they were managing in PG County, and then also looked at Philadelphia to just understand what their models were so that we could, take this back to the Stadium Authority and try to renegotiate a better agreement.
How long have we had that deal with the Stadium Authority?
Do you know how long, for the inside, how long have you had the
inside
contract?
and, yeah.
How long is it going for, or has it?
Yeah, you said we're getting like 100K per game.
We just renegotiated that last year, the year before with because every time our officers get a raise, we have to raise the price to the Ravens to cover the raises. So I think we just did that last year when they entered into the 2-year contract with both the Ravens and the Orioles. We increased it so that we are not losing money on the inside unless there has to be a canceled leave per day.
Okay. I will just restate, love having folks come into our city, love having folks engage with our sports teams, but this is classic problem of people that use our services, use our roads, use our police, TOs, DOT, all of it, and then aren't paying the proper share. And so I would really appreciate when you can an update on renegotiating that with the Stadium Authority, because that feels pretty inequitable for the city.
Yes, it takes a lot of resources to manage game day. And again, it's something that we've been looking into for some time. So absolutely, I'll provide you an update as our lawyers make progress on this issue. And then I'll also try to pull, on average, how much we're spending we'll use Ravens games because we spend more on Ravens games than we do on Orioles games.
I appreciate that. While you're here, this is a point that has been made to the fire department. Mr. Blanchard was making it earlier. But really wanting to see the predicted costs of the budget reflected in the budget. Do not like the practice of supplementals. Do not like having the council approve supplementals that should be included in your initial budget. Understand, again, there's going to be some overage in any agency, but the amount of supplementals that we are doing for police and fire is extreme. And it remains a deep concern to this council. I don't have a question, but thank you, Madam Chair.
We talking about practice. When we talk about event overtime, I'm just saying we talking about practice. I'm going to go to an area that is important to me, and that would be the consent decree, which is a quick question. The updated eighth year monitoring plan, I believe that came out maybe Q4 of 2025. Can you speak to, or can someone speak to what specific consent decree requirements will BPD complete in FY27 and which remain the highest risk for delay? And that's taken into account that I know that there are a number that are ongoing and some other items that you're working through, but what can we expect to complete in FY27 and which remain the highest risk for delay?
Okay. Again, Chief Sullivan with Compliance Division. So we are right now waiting for the monitoring team to complete 10 assessments for this year. And I should clarify, many of them will start this year, though not necessarily all will be finished in this year, this calendar year. But there are 9 assessments, or 10 assessments that we are waiting on. BPD, you know, the methodologies are done in most of them. The data has been delivered in most of them. And it's just a process of the monitoring team going through all of that material. Also, they do look at, it's not just data, it's qualitative as well. So they will look at body-worn camera. And if it's a use of force incident, for example, they're not just looking at one officer, they're looking at all the body-worn camera of every single officer that happened to be on the scene. So it does take some time, but we feel very good about where we are. I know Judge Berdara is very pleased with the progress. You know, some of them, they take a long time just due to the way that the decree is written and the assessments that are required.
I know that we have an agency, DPW, they have like a separate budget line item that specifically speaks to portions of the consent decree. From my understanding, the consent decree is within the compliance, the service compliance? Okay. Are there any specific budget lines that are related directly to the consent decree within that service?
No, they're kind of all over the agency depending on kind of like the cost accounting. So if it's something where, you know, into the consent decree that's related to IT, you'd find it in IT's budget. We do have a tracking table where we've kind of tracked all those expenses and any still pending expenses so that we can keep track of the total consent decree costs, but there's no specific line item that identifies it.
Is that tracker public facing or is that internal?
No, it's more of a working document that we use.
Okay, would you be able to share that with the committee within a week? Just what you have as of today.
Okay.
And is a week to share it is okay.
Yeah, that's fine. It is a working document, so we probably want to make it pretty. So a week should be good.
Okay, that's cool. I like pretty. I want to get into, it's actually a follow-up to an item that council member, one of my colleagues asked earlier, and that was around proactive policing. And I asked this question knowing that every district is not the same. The housing typology is not the same. So proactive policing is going to look different in different areas of a district and within different districts. Within that service, we had the response target as for FY27 as 40%. And I guess I was trying to get an understanding of why it was 48% in FY25, but that we were dropping it to 40%. And again, taking into consideration that there are different characteristics for each police district.
What was that? I didn't understand the question. I'm sorry.
Okay, so Councilman Jones, I think in your response, you talked about proactive policing. And I wanted to know why did within that particular performance metric, FY25, we had it at 48%, but in FY27, it now dropped to 40%. So I just wanted just an explanation of that drop.
Ryan Lee, Chief of Patrol. When we were crafting these performance metrics, if you look in, sorry, I've got to put my glasses back on. If you look at our actual target, our target in fiscal 26 was 33. Previous years, like the performance, what we actually had versus what our target is, we're trying to align that to the resources. What that percentage represents is discretionary time allotted to the officer. So the amount of time an officer is not on a call for service, recognizing the staffing challenges we have, we're trying to align it with an expectation that can be met. It's still well within what is considered the percentage of time necessary to engage in proactive community policing from national research.
Thank you. The second one is actually within the same service. We don't have a ton of performance measures for these services. I understand that that's going to likely change in the future for many of our agencies. Can you explain the first performance of the priority one calls? And I can see that I'm referencing FY25 because we have those actuals. I don't have the actuals for FY26, knowing that it hasn't ended yet. So just for context, that's why I'm referencing FY25. Can you speak to why the actual response priority one calls was 8 minutes for actual in FY25, FY27, that target is now 9 minutes. And I can see a drop from your target of FY26. And also, as of today, knowing that we still have a little bit of time within FY26, where did you fall as of today for your actual, for that performance measure?
I'll answer that second part of the question first, which is I'll have to get back to you with research on where we sit, what the exact number is, as far as what our average response time is for FY26.
How long would you need on that? Would that be a day, 2 days?
I would have to get with data-driven strategies to have them compile it. I think it would be safe to say within a couple of weeks, we make sure that we have those accurate numbers back to you.
Is 3 weeks adequate?
It should be, ma'am.
Okay.
But to the first part of your question, the original target goal that we had was 10 minutes to respond, first officer on scene, to priority one call for service. In other words, from the time the dispatcher calls out our most important calls and officers arriving and saying that they're on scene within 10 minutes, we were able to realize 8 minutes. We recognize that there's a variety of variables that can occur to our response time. It was good that we were able to reach 8 minutes. Recognizing that we're pushing down that target expectation to 9. Our intent is to continue to push that target expectation down lower as officers become conditioned and available to respond quicker and be that first officer on scene. We're also measuring when that second officer arrives and they're most likely able to take effective action as necessary on a call for service.
Can you define priority one service calls?
I'll put them in just the most plain speak I can. Crime in progress, life, limb, property in danger immediately, get here now.
And we're looking at 9 minutes coming from that target of 10 minutes, but we're looking at 9 minutes for FY27 for those calls.
We're saying the original target goal was 10. We were able to realize 8. We've dropped the target goal to 9. We're hoping to have 8 or better in this year, and we're going to continue to push the target goal further and further down to close that response time. Some of that has to do with the staffing, the availability that we have in patrol, but it's also a myriad of variables at any given time. How many other priority calls for service may be going on? How many officers are required to manage a particular call for service? And so we need to be cautious in setting a projection that we can realistically improve performance, but at the same time, realistically expect our officers to meet that improvement.
Okay, so we have the target for and understanding the variables. We have the target for FY27. Are patrol officers spending more time on calls? Is that a trend? I don't have that performance measure, so I don't have anything to go by. But are they spending more time on calls?
It's a challenge to weigh out when we say more time on calls. We could look at the overall average, but we really need to start pulling apart the call typing to see how long does it take to resolve a call, and then even a more granular level to that, which we need data research on, would be how many officers for how long on a certain type of call to get to an outcome we in the community would think is an optimal outcome. That's for the purposes of this and the budget, we're looking at what's that response time. When you have a police officer there that's able to start doing something when you're calling them in an emergency situation. And again, with the target being 10, we dropped it to 9. We're continuing to push performance improvements by lowering those margins.
How, if you could explain, and this is my last question, if you could explain, or somebody could explain, how are we using this data to improve outcomes?
Part of it is that we have to be able to be on scene when there's a priority call to be able to take effective police action. That's the first step in the outcome. If you're looking for the police to respond, how fast can we get there and do something when it's an emergency? We're also, through a variety of other oversight measures, we're regularly expecting supervisors to respond to scene. We're looking at body-worn camera footage when there's altercations that result in use of force to look for opportunities to improve. We're enhancing our training for response and then auditing that as well. So there's layers to this beyond just the initial response time that really speak to managing personnel and improving their performance and leading them towards those right outcomes.
And then our response times could be directly related with saving a life, because let's say it's a shooting. Our officers have received much more training than I ever did in the academy about how to provide medical services. So they'll get on the scene and may put a tourniquet on someone's leg or arm who may have passed in previous years because they weren't given that training and they weren't there within the amount of time to help save the life. So I think that's a big thing, especially with the Part 1 crimes, because that allows us to also track and catch the criminal quickly after he or she commits the crime.
I appreciate you both. I appreciate you stating some of the variables on how, because that was my thing. I was looking to see how does it impact improve outcomes. You said enhanced training. You said you're able to audit it. Thank you. And thank you for sharing, as that's one thing that I did not think of, say 20 years ago, officers are doing, and I think that we do need to remember that officers are doing more when they're responding to these calls. So I definitely appreciate you for adding that in, Commissioner. We're going to go to Councilman Gray.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Axon's contract with the Baltimore Police started at $11.6 million, climbed to $46 million, and is now proposed to jump to $153 million, more than 3 times the existing contract. And that's running through June 2036 and covering body cameras, tasers, drones, VR, training headsets, and new AI capabilities for narrative drafting, data entry, language translation, transcriptions, and question and answering based on officer recordings and documents. Why was this contract of this magnitude awarded without competitive bidding, and what specific community benefit or cost-saving analysis was concluded before committing Baltimore's taxpayers' dollars to a decade-long sole source relationship with a single vendor?
Yeah, the easy answer is the 10-year contract. Over the course of the 10-year contract is going to save the city taxpayers $29 million. Axon is the very best out there. They are who we're using for our body-worn cameras. We use them for our tasers. They have our records management system, which allows us to do reports electronically. They are also, we are the pilot where they are designing a case management system for us that they will probably eventually sell throughout the country, but it replaces our Lotus Notes and gives us better at fingertip knowledge of cases and be able to track things a lot quicker. They also have the drones, the Skydio drones, which is part of it. The AI portion we are not using yet. We get it for free for 2 years, and then we can decide if we want to use it, and then we can add it into the contract. But as of this point, we're not.
Do you know how much that is currently, if you were to add that in?
Yes, so it'd be about a third of that overall figure. It would be about $6 million a year over that course of 8 years.
So additional almost $50 million. Correct. So now we're looking at 200. But if you did, it was 200 million. Okay.
I think AI is too new for us to, and it's developing too quick for us to go into that. We know it has the capabilities to basically transcribe what our officers are hearing. But we're not allowing them to use that to write the reports. But the fact that if we would have had to put it out to bid and somebody else won, we would have to change everything that we're doing. We would have to do a new records management system. All of our body-worn cameras would have to be changed out. Our tasers would have to be changed out. Our drones, which we are going to use from them, would have to be done differently, and our records management. All of those things would be changed, and quite honestly, Axon is the leader in technology in that field, and they've been a great partner to us, and we worked really well with them. The CAO and the mayor's office worked really hard to get the contract to something. I know it's a lot of money, but I think you're going to see over the 10-year contract, it's going to save us a lot of money, and it's going to help us. When you have a police-involved shooting and you see all those body-worn cameras and you're able to point out, that's all Axon technology. When we get the reports, it's all Axon technology that has increased our officers' efficiency. And the taser, when we use it, it's their technology. So I know it's a lot of money, but I think it was the right decision. And I think it's going to keep us moving forward throughout the tenure of the contract and just make us better agency because we can track things quicker, faster, and at a more in-depth pace.
Thank you for the answer. Given the police department's documented history of enforcement practices of past that gave rise to the federal dissent decree, what is the department's community engagement strategy to educate residents in my district and other historically over-policed communities on how exactly these AI tools will be deployed? What internal guardrails, independent audit mechanisms, and oversight protocols exist to ensure that these tools are used to positively impact public safety rather than an instrument of punitive or discriminatory enforcement?
I'll let Chief Canton answer that, but we have bars on what we can, AI is still way too new for me to set it free.
I'm Derek Canton, Chief Technology Officer for the Police Department. Could you ask your question again? I want to be able to be specific in my answer.
Yes. What is the department's community engagement strategy to educate residents on how these AI tools will be deployed? What internal guardrails, independent audit mechanisms, and oversight protocols exist to ensure that these tools are used for positive impact and public safety rather than tools of punitive or discriminatory enforcement or, quite frankly, just surveillance?
Okay, so in terms of community engagement, technology was under consent decree. We just made it into the sustainment phase. And as a result of being in consent decree, one of the things we must do is notify the community of any new technology that we're going to employ. And we've consistently done that over the years. So as we talk about artificial intelligence, I realize that there's going to be a need for a significant guardrail. So we haven't released any of the AI tools into use and production. So what our intention is that we want to make sure that we maintain retention of any AI usage so that we realize that it was in fact used. We want to make sure that any AI tools that are used are not the free tools. We want to make sure that whatever tools that might be used are in accordance with the executive order or any policies that the city provides. I would say that we're contributors with the city. In terms of a policy, we've been developing some sort of draft policy that we can use to make sure that we're not doing what we ought not do with the tool.
Yeah.
As far as surveillance goes, all right. So AI in surveillance. Again, I don't know.
We can all tell the community, oh, this is this new tool, and it's going to help you. It's going to help you keep your community safe. And that's great until someone's sitting on their back porch drinking a cup of coffee and the drone that has BPD's logo, whatever, it comes by them. And then the question is, where's this coming from? And I'm just using that just as an off, who knows if that would happen, who knows if it will. But we have drones, we have all these other things that are intrusive, quite frankly, to people's lives. And so I want to make sure that we're not going to CRC meetings saying, this is this great tool that's going to stop violence, and really letting people know these are the pros, but also these are some things you may experience because of this new technology. Because that is public engagement, that's public education, and not just letting people know of all the great things. Also letting them know sometimes like this also can be the inconvenience, because when they face it in their everyday lives, it's different than what they're being told sometimes.
I understand. So,
Hey, Chief. So, Councilman Brian Nato, Deputy Police Commissioner for RAB, any change goes out for public comment? Any change solicits the public's recommendations, and also other units within the city that we go to before we make any change, and make sure that we get the input of not only the monitors, the DOJ, et cetera. There is not a great appetite for sweeping change. We are on a path to success and conclusion at this point. So we are not looking to go off the rails. So the concern about us automatically just rolling into an AI-generated process because, hey, it's new and it's cool, et cetera, is never going to happen while this administration's here.
Yeah, I just know personally I'm going to be following up with this with you guys just to ensure that everything is being actually put out to the public. I respect the consent decree. And this is no disrespect. People do not attend those meetings, not at the scale that when you can do at a CRC and commanders meeting. And so let's be completely honest. To do it at a consent decree meeting versus doing it at actual association meeting, someone's annual meeting, at a commander's meeting, a CRC, these are where you're actually talking to people. And you're actually talking to people that are going to be the people that will be calling in each and every day about the corner in their neighborhood, about whatever that's going on. They're there because, quite frankly, they want the police, they want more police presence. But I want to make sure that, like, on the record, we are going to be going outside of just the dissent decree and that public notice, because that is, we could be doing more than that. And I challenge and I need you to do more than that.
So I hear you, sir, and Deputy Commissioner Jones. Push down. Push it. Stop.
Yeah, push it. Let's push it. Yeah, you touched it. Yeah, push it down. There you go.
You make it seem like it's me. It's not me. Okay. Oh, he said I went to Mervo. Okay. Touche. So what I will say is, anything that comes out of consent decree, be it technology, investigations, if we're looking to centralize a unit, if we're looking to decentralize a unit, while it may start off as a thought or a dream in a boardroom or for the operational necessity of the agency, rest assured, it is pushed down either through one-on-one conversations or CompStat to the district commanders, preparing them as best as possible to have these conversations, these hard conversations with their community. I tell everybody all of the time, if you're not in the boardroom where the decisions are made, sometimes you're on the street where the consequences are felt. So when these boardroom decisions are made, being in a CRC meeting, being in a community meeting, advising them as a district commander that it is coming this way, new technology, new transitions. The big thing is, yes, like you said, there are a lot of positives, but there are also some unintended consequences. And I think we need to be open and honest when it is those to make sure the community is aware of those.
I had to fix mine, sorry. Okay, I hear you, and I believe you, but I just wanted to make sure that we know that the consent decree it's the basement, it's not the ceiling. And to build that public trust, it's gonna take more than this, just that. And I'm happy that you guys are in agreement, and I would love just to follow up just to make sure. And it's not so much of the fear of sometimes of AI, it's just making sure that our communities know what devices are being deployed in their communities. No one knew what the knockers were before they were, and they raise hell in communities. So, and I guarantee you, if you went to a CRC meeting back then, it was this new strategy that was gonna really bring crime down, and it didn't, and it terrorized neighborhoods. And so, it wasn't AI, but it was a new system that was deployed. So, just wanna make sure that we're just mindful of that. Do I have another question? Thank you. Overall, crime is decreasing significantly across the board. However, there's been substantial increases in police spending over recent fiscal years. Ongoing staff vacancies, continued overtime expenditures, unsolved consent decree obligations. Why should the council be confident that the FY27 budget represents the most effective use of taxpayers' dollars to improve public safety? And if the department receives every dollar requested in FY2027, what measurable outcomes should the council use 1 year from now to determine whether the investment was successful?
I think you use what's happened the last 3 years. We've said we were going to do things as a city and as an agency with all of our partners, and we've delivered. We've delivered on the crime numbers that the city has never seen since before. Well, I was actually born in the '60s, so but a lot of people here weren't born in the '60s when these even then the numbers. You gotta just look, and I know homicides. Everybody always wants to talk about homicides until our homicide numbers are down. Now nobody wants to talk about them. Well, look at everything else. But 6, 4, and 8. 6 in April, 6 in March, 4 in April, 8 in May. That's how many homicides we've had in 90 days. And I think we've delivered. I know we have gone over our budget, but we look at everything we have to spend. And our job is to make sure when we have these big events that nobody has to worry about their safety because we're out there doing it with Artscape, AFRAM, Ravens games, Orioles games, anything that comes into the city. And it's going to continue because I'm in the city, driving down in the city a lot. There's more people here. Last weekend we had Death Jam, we had Artscape. I think there was an event at CFG. You had the Orioles with a doubleheader. And that's just the special events. That's not counting everything else that's happening in the city. So I think he putting the confidence in and giving us the budget that we asked for is because we've delivered on our promise to make Baltimore safer over the last 3 years.
Well, what a difference 4 years makes, because you're out here saying it with your chest. And if you don't know what that means, you can ask DC Jones. He'll let you know what that is. But yeah, what a difference 3 or 4 years makes. Thank you for all you do, and just know that as a city council, we'll always be here to hold you accountable no matter what. And it's great that we can sit here and talk about other things other than the murder rate. We can talk about technology, we can talk about loitering, we can talk about all the other things, because the city's in a great direction, and you guys have played a great part, and you've been doing it in mostly a great way. So thank you.
Thank you.
We know what that means. So I actually I wanna just briefly go back to homicides. Talk to us about, obviously you are sustaining the reductions, but can you explain how you are sustaining these reductions, especially this year? Because it is, for lack of a better word, it's amazing that we're here and you're stating, hey, we've only had, we always know that every life is too much, but we've only had 40 homicides coming from where we were.
It goes back to partnerships. It's the group violence reduction strategy partners the mayor, the state's attorney's office, and the police commissioner. And this is the third time we tried this. It failed the last 2 times because, quite honestly, it was only the police department that was really trying to do it. Now we have us three that work together, but we also have our federal, state, and local partners. We have the governor's office giving us money for different initiatives. So you have everybody working together to make Baltimore safer. And then the one thing that happens is when you start to have success, everybody wants a piece of it. So everybody wants to jump and help us. So, hey, bring all the help you want, we can, because 40 of them, and I know the mayor pushes it back on me, is that I came up with the goal of under 100 homicides this year, but I think we can do it. I trust that the men and women work their butts off every single day, but we can't do it alone. We can't do it without the wraparound services. We can't do it without the cases being prosecuted. So if everybody does their part, Baltimore can achieve some great success.
Outside of just numbers, before it happens, I'm assuming it is there, for lack of a better word, trends that you could see. What would be any early warning indicators that crime could potentially rise again?
Well, I think that's why we have a crime call every single morning at 10, well, not every morning, Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. All of us here in operations gets on a crime call, and we talk about what happened yesterday. For example, we had a shooting yesterday. Okay, well, what is that related to? Who is his associates? Is it part of the group violence reduction strategy? Where is the retaliation going to come? Who's responsible? These questions are asked every single morning, and then we deploy. We have technology in the BCICs that allow us to track things. We have the Watch Center, and then we have all our city partners with, for example, if we have problem housing, we can go to the housing department. If we need to shut down a business that could be a problem, we use the health department and the fire department for overcrowding. So we're getting ahead of a lot of things by proactively policing them and preventing them from becoming a problem. Can't prevent everything, but our goal is to talk about that every single morning and move into the next day with, hopefully, with a win.
Thank you. I'm happy that we are in a place where you can be proactive on these items, on continue to just make sure that you're reducing crime further. Councilwoman Ramos, and thank you.
Madam Chair, my questions were answered earlier by other members that asked the questions. Thanks.
Councilman Blanchard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, while obviously we can't overstate the very positive impact of, right, not just homicides, not just shootings, but a lot of forms of violent crime going down. There are crimes in the realm of things that we need to do better at as a city so that people just feel good about living in the city and people want to come to the city and do all those types of things. And I've really appreciated over the last year the department's commitment, particularly as violent crime goes down, to find creative solutions to better address those things. Whether it's both the entertainment district and citywide traffic have both been, I think, really, really important initiatives, and I appreciate the seriousness that BPD and the mayor's team has taken in adjusting things to put these units into play when we didn't have something as effective as that before. So 2 questions, both in that realm. First question, I have a couple of, and Chief Murphy knows what I'm asking about. I have a couple of establishments in my district that hold liquor licenses and should be shut down. They should not exist in Baltimore City. They've led to multiple homicides between them. I was out walking with a member of the mayor's office from 1 to 2:30 last night. Sorry, not last night, Saturday night and a Sunday morning, and saw around bar let out time, fights break out at both locations. We actually saw someone running down an adjacent street, sprinting. We're like, well, that's odd, right? And then we saw one of the security guards, walking after him and going back, and then learn later that that was all tied together. These are, which 2 establishments probably I'm referring to. There's nothing, everything is predictable about this. We all know these are recurring problems. I know the department's been really committed to this. There are things that certainly, things that the police could do better, the bars could do better, like that everyone could do better. DOT could be more involved in these like heavy nightlife environments. But then sometimes there's just bad actors making a lot of money off people, and leading to outcomes like where you have 5 homicides within a 1-block radius of Cross Street Market within a 2.5-year span. Since I've been in office, there's only 2 locations in my district. I've been blessed, but also with the drop in homicides, right? It's the area just north of Lexington Market and the area on Cross Street Market are the only 2 places where we've had multiple homicides, same spot. So, first question, what can we do? Is it something, could BPD use more capacity? Is it something that there needs to be some structural or legislative change in the city? What are the things that need to happen so that we can hold bad establishments accountable, and we're not having to just have all of our law enforcement, everyone swimming upstream in kind of an almost impossible situation?
The padlock laws allow you to close places, but the padlock laws can be a little, if it doesn't happen on the properties, on the business's property, you can't hold it against them, like if it happens in the street. Now, I know other cities allow police commissioners to close establishments for things less than a homicide or a shooting. We talked about this last year, the year before, where DC can shut down a business for 72 hours for certain things. So until some type of legislation gives us a little more authority, we have to play within the rules of the legislation that's currently on the books. So.
Bet. Follow up, do you have, so DC, and I always appreciate when agency heads talk about what other cities are doing that they think we should also be doing. Where should we look for inspiration?
I will have to get back to you on that, but I know this was a couple years ago, DC had a law where they could shut it down for 72 hours.
Okay. I know it's not a committee request, 'cause it's not tied to the budget, but I'll follow up with Chief Murphy and look forward to continuing that conversation.
We'll look at, we probably need to look at like DC, Philly, places that have those type of entertainment areas that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. It is absolutely striking to me that you can get in a fight in a bar, walk 25 feet out the bar, kill the person you were fighting. That happened twice within a 12-month period, and we can't shut that establishment down. And those are just like, there are multiple other examples. And I know all the diligence that y'all have put into this.
I've been dealing with the consent decree since I was a major, so it's been 14 years, 13 years, and dealing with it specifically myself on different agencies, different capacities.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. So that's question one. Question two, the other thing that I've really appreciated the department's change in strategy on is with how citywide traffic particularly is seeking to address dirt bike challenges. And I've really appreciated Colonel Lee's work, I guess now Major DiPaolo's work. So I think they've been great partners with that. I was really excited to see the news from over the weekend. I know there's still, there's still things being fleshed out there, and certainly for example, the 288 seniors who live at Christchurch Apartments at Light and Key Highway would really be less mad at me if we could get this ironed out faster, right? Amongst a lot of other folks in my district. How do you see that unit grow? And I know citywide traffic is about stuff more broadly in the right of way, right? Like it's not just dirt bikes. And that's great. We definitely need to do, I think they're already doing great stuff enforcing, car violations and things like that. I've seen a lot of that. Can you talk me through, particularly when it involves dirt bikes and ATVs, how you expect to see the units sort of capacity expanding, if it's maybe more personnel or other things like that over the next year?
No, I'm not, there's not going to be any more people go into the unit because I've got to fill patrol. But our other units under SO, Special Operations, are going to be utilized, like the Traffic Investigation Unit, who else? Traffic Investigation, our Motors Unit. Those are the ones that are going to start investigating these individuals, because quite honestly, I can't stand them. They raised the stakes the other day when they tried to run up the back of one of my officers with their dirt bike. So we will start enforcing. Our cops are not happy with the way that individual behaves, and we're going to do everything we can to take every single dirt bike off the street. And if the businesses out there want to allow them to fuel up at their gas station, we will cite the business for allowing them to fuel at their gas station. So they are a nuisance to the city, and we're going to do our best. Unfortunately, we can't chase them. They know that, so they taunt us. But once we get the helicopter above them, they're not going to outrun the helicopter, and they can drive everywhere they want. The helicopter stay on them. So we got to take off one or two of them at a time. We will.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councilman Parker?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner Ward, I mentioned before my deep appreciation for the creation and the work of the EDU. It's been, it's had a massive impact in Fells Point in my district, but I'm sure in other parts of other districts as well. I wanted to better understand how that intersects with the budget in front of us. I know that functionally it's housed under central, but it's doesn't seem budget-wise like there's been an uptick in central that would, between 25, 26, 27, that would track with the addition of that capacity. I know, as I mentioned before, a number of the officers who are there are actually assigned to the recruitment division. So just if somebody would help us tease out where the costs for that are found.
Well, you're not going to see too much of an increase because they don't make a lot of overtime. So it's basically just the job numbers that are in the central, and then they transition into their districts. So they're filling patrol positions. So there's not a whole lot of overtime or budgeted because they're in officer positions. So it's not going to create a lot of difference in the central because they're only detailed there and then they're rolling right back out.
Okay.
And then the initial entertainment district took the place of the Inner Harbor unit.
Right.
So that was kind of a push on the cost.
No, I appreciate that. So remind us, because I know it's a unique model where a number of the officers who are out on patrol are in their trainee phase. Remind us how many permanent sworn folks are assigned to EDU and how many are rotating through. What's that breakdown?
Well, I think there's 10 that are permanently assigned. 2 sergeants, no, I'm sorry, I think there's 4 sergeants because we have to supervise the units that come in. And the lieutenant, I think 4 sergeants and 8 or 9 officers. And then you have, right now, there's a class of 35 and a class of 21 that are assigned to entertainment units. So you got, I think it's 56 total there. But next week, that class of 35 is going to go out, but a class of 28 is going to come in. So it'll be a different 28 people. Those 35 go to patrol, but they're all filling officer positions. So it's not increasing anything in the budget to the central.
Great. So just on the permanent side then, just so I'm tracking, lieutenant, 4 sergeants, 8 to 9 officers. So let's say that's like 13 or 14. Those 13 or 14 staff are on the central books.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. And then the payment for the 35 or 21 or 28 or whatever, that's going to be on the recruitment side. That's where that money is.
No, that should go.
That's also on central
too. That should go
too?
into the central.
Okay.
Yes.
Cool. Thank you just for clearing that up. And again, I really appreciate it. I know a lot of folks did a lot of really creative work around a really difficult and challenging set of circumstances. And I know we're not, we're less than a year in, so we're only starting to see really positive results, but the ones so far have been really good. So we appreciate it. We had a bit of a conversation about this with a different agency the other day, but just wanted to bring it up here to Service 628, the Public Integrity Bureau. Number of just the performance measure, a number of investigations completed within 180 days. Just the actuals from 46 to 44 to 25% in fiscal 24 to 24% in fiscal 25. I think I understand some of the dynamics behind that, but if somebody would be willing to just kind of speak to the slowdown or just the reality of that performance measure.
Yes, Brian Nato, Deputy Commissioner. So that all has to do with the volume of cases that come in versus the number of investigators that we currently have. Of course, like everywhere else in the agency, people get promoted, they leave, they retire, move on, we get new folks in. That is one area where we've actually been using civilian investigators, which has been a huge help. But we have had a turnover in civilian investigators, leaving, getting experience, going somewhere else. So we worked on the salary adjustments for that, hopefully to curb that from happening in the future. But it literally comes down to number of investigators and how many cases that come in. So we have roughly 1,500 cases per year. So with the number of investigators, that is where we are. We are trying to get to 180. We'd like to be at 180. Of course, the quicker we get to those, the better it is for the public and certainly for the officer. But just based on the staffing numbers, that is where we are currently today.
How has that 1,500 number changed over the last few fiscal years?
So it actually, when when I first started here, it was up around 2,000, so it's come down a lot. But it did go a little bit lower, I think around 1,350 up to 1,500. What I will say is, since we have made it easier for people to file complaints, right? You can do it through a portal, you can do it through the PAB, you can do it through online, you can walk in, you can call. It has attracted more complaints. I won't say those complaints are all sustained or convicted complaints, but it has allowed people to make more complaints. And really, a lot of that stuff comes down to communication between the officers and the member of the public. The member of the public perceive it as something different than it is. Once we go through, watch body-worn camera, we see that. So we're trying to address that in the academy as well, being more customer service orientated, more talking to people, learn what you're saying is how it can be perceived to sort of reduce the number of complaints. What I will say, the number of serious misconduct cases has certainly gone down. Number of use of forces have gone down. So all in all, it's fairly good numbers. However, even the smallest complaint, because they go to the ACC, has to be fully investigated so that we don't get them back from the ACC for follow-up. We almost have a zero return rate for follow-up because we are one agency that is very we do such a strong investigation at the beginning and give them everything that they don't necessarily come back and ask for more. So that sort of helps in the process, but it is the volume versus the number of folks we have.
Have changes in state law had any impact on the ability of CIP or the Public Integrity Bureau to work through things?
Oh, most definitely. So because the cases go to the ACC, whereas before when they were being adjudicated internally, you didn't need to have necessarily every video watch because you could see it on a couple. State law requires all video to be watched. That is very voluminous in time. So that has to be done. Plus, we have to write the reports much more detailed because it's going to individuals that aren't normally, well, they haven't been police officers. They're not used to a lot of lingo, et cetera. So we have to write them more in plain language. And then they have to go to legal for a review before they go over because they're the ones that have to prosecute them. So the state law has really slowed down the process. But on the flip side, there's some positivity to it, right? So now we have people outside of BPD making the calls as to whether or not something is sustained or not. So that gives the public more assurance that it's being looked at by somebody outside of the department. So with the pros, there's some cons. With the cons, there's some pros. At the end of the day, that's what the law is. And so that's what we work towards to make sure that it can work effectively.
Thank you. Madam Chair, I think a committee request here. You mentioned the overall numbers. Let's say going back from just what's on here, so from fiscal year 22 to current, in terms of how many investigations you all were conducting, how many complaints came in, whatever the appropriate language is. And then you mentioned like a tiering or like a serious, whatever that language was, if you could break that out.
Sure.
3 weeks is all right?
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. We want to thank the Baltimore Police Department for joining us this evening and also thank them for the great work that they are doing within all of our communities. We will be back at 9 a.m. Tomorrow morning for our last day of budget hearings. Good night.